Adrenaline in my soul.
Adrenaline in your surfing, Cody Rhodes. It started off a bit
quite surreal that it's all the exact same entrance as well. Everything about
that's what I
is...
said this. I said this into a reply to Game Troll Prime, that the fact that pretty much nothing has changed about Cody's character or like presentation from going from AEW to WWE in just his first match is really strange. Like I don't think that's ever happened.
I mean, the closest thing I can think
happened.
of, is probably when Flair in 1991 went to the WWF with the big gold belt. That's probably the closest thing I can think of. But even then, his character was slightly altered for that too, especially in ring.
Yeah,
he was a lot more. He was a lot more cartoonish.
Yeah, this is just so strange to watch because he cut a promo on a interview after, and it's pretty much the same character. It's the same Cody Rhodes. They're just not referencing the fact that he's been away for 6 years in another company.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell this ad is on the screen. Better turn it off, actually. Just some random rabbit.
Yeah, this is
rabbit.
fucking. Oh, I need to take a picture of that. What the fuck? I just what? That's what a start. Oh my god.
Hey guys, it is Wingy.
Clearly we are the best. We are the best EFUP spin-off podcast because of our professionalism.
Hey guys, it is Wingy here.
With this.
Yeah.
It's just...
Oh yeah, Wingy's gone for like a really weird, tacky green screen now as opposed to what he used to have. And it's got a shitty aspect ratio on it.
Oh, that'll be fun. That totally won't be annoying.
Yeah, it's really annoying. It's really annoying, because he used to have a good setup. Like, with the whole background and everything. And now it just looks dumb. Ah. Not happy about that.
Power ups. Oh god, yeah, what the fuck is this?
He's changed it.
Oh, why?
It's annoying because
this looks really tacky.
Yeah, his old setup he had was really, really good.
Yeah, the setup on granted, it was like it's now like 2 years ago now, but that was fine. It's fine.
I really liked how he had like his whole shelf and he had the big Tom Baker thing with the scarf on it. It was memorable. It was, it was distinct to him. And now he's just got a shitty PNG of the TARDIS that's not even the right aspect ratio, and it looks terrible. And the green screen on it's a bit fucked as well, because you can see through his head.
Mm-hmm.
Look, you can see through his beanie. Because it's slightly green.
Oh, God. Here's a pro tip. Don't wear the same colors as your background if you're going to do chroma key.
Mm-hmm.
Just a bit of advice.
Yeah. Yeah, I better share the stream Twitter.
To Twitter.
Oh, it's been a long day. I've been awake since 7 a.m.
I've been awake for pretty much 24 hours.
Been awake for a very long time.
With probably like about half an hour's sleep, maybe.
I woke up
and really kind of just a nap.
I woke up an hour earlier than usual because of daylight saving.
Those goddamn savings.
Yeah.
I mean, right now I feel fine. Maybe after this stream, I'll probably want to kill myself in game.
Yeah. And Ruby Soho's eyes look like they're gonna pop out of her head sometimes. Like when you see the Guinness World Records and you got those people that pop their eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Typical EDAR, always complaining and mocking over nothing.
You know
where
what?
I say,
You know what?
yes, that's always
You know
us.
what? Fuck it. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm going
What are you
to
gonna do,
crop.
Connor?
I'm going to crop his video.
You're gonna crop the video?
Yep. I cannot stand those black bars. They will.
Well, we're watching the Schneider cut.
I'm genuinely going to crop it because I cannot stand those black bars to be on my
This
live
is
stream.
probably going to be more entertaining than Schneider cut, so there's at least that.
Yeah.
Not many things can be less entertaining than the Schneider cut.
Well, some people think the Snyder Cut's like a 10 out of 10 film, so there you go.
I know, and they're really weird.
Yeah.
It is legitimately, I've said this many times, watching Zack Snyder's Justice League is absolutely my worst film watching experience. Like I think you remember the picture I posted on Twitter when it came out.
Yeah.
But oh man, I was in a bad way.
Well, because I guess at least with like Tross, you're able to laugh, right?
Oh yeah, I laughed a lot, and I guess that mainly came for the fact that I knew the leaks going into it, like a lot of people did. So you kind of knew what to expect.
I do,
and,
yeah, but I also genuinely think it's quite a funny bad film.
I agree. I think probably because I remember I gave it a 0 out of 10. I'm still stick by that just for personal reasons. Like I don't think it's a legitimate 0 out of 10 because I don't think that's possible. Even though like numbers are like arbitrary, like I don't think a film can be if we're using the 0 out of 10.
I think there are 0 out of 10 films, but it's very hard to find them in like
Hollywood. Well, I would say I agree with the sort of example Rags says about a 0 out of 10. It would literally be a story that just doesn't like, it's almost not a story, like it's just jumbles.
Yeah, it would
get what I mean?
It would also have to be just like terribly shot, out of focus, terribly acted, terrible
like
score.
Literally everything would have to be like wrong with it, and the story would have to be
if it was just like, I don't know, like a 2-hour black screen with like loud noise. I mean that's a straw man. That wouldn't happen.
That wouldn't happen though. No one would make that film. No one's ever going to make that film. And if they do, it'd be unironically.
Yeah, like even something like
ironically, sorry.
Even something like The Room, which is a shambles, isn't a 0 out of 10 because it actually, even if it's not on purpose, does have some merit to it. On a technical level, like it actually has some. I wouldn't call it. It's probably very generous to call it good, but it has like a set that can work. Like some of the settings that is used in The Room can work, like the shop and the house and everything.
Yeah.
And like the costuming's not atrocious for a lot of it, apart from when they just randomly are in tuxedos for no reason, which is hilarious. Anyway,
but like but I was just gonna say on Tross, like it's. I remember when I first watched it and we did review it, I was annoyed at it a lot. And I think over the last now, like over 2 years, which is fucking crazy to say, it's been now over 2 years since Tross came out. Yeah. That's like insane.
It's been 3 years.
But now it's like
it's been exactly 3 years since Endgame and season 8 of Game of Thrones came out.
Yeah, we've known each other for 3 years now, and it's been a ride, and we've watched a lot of shite.
Honestly, I don't know why, but one of my strongest memories I've ever had was when we did the review of the Wolverine, and then after we talked for like 6 hours like watching
Oh,
other
we
stuff.
did that a lot during the early days of talking
But
to each other.
what I
like,
mean is that it was that specific night. I remember this because I was at this. Obviously, we're flatting now, but this was back when Daniel lived with his parents, and his parents are away. I went to his house to use his internet with his laptop,
yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
and I just sat at his house, and it was really like cozy, and we just watched a whole bunch of shit after that Wolverine review. That was a real fun time.
Yeah, well, we did that like, yeah. Good times.
To respond to Luca's comment, you're right that 4:3 is Classic Who's aspect ratio, but he's not copying it because he's using the RTD TARDIS. And
also, Classic Who not only was limited to that, but it also used that framing as it should have been used, not like this in Schneider cut.
Yeah, most of the time, it
yeah.
did. And also, one of the most cringiest things about actually being in the 2000s was RTD era Doctor Who YouTube videos in 4:3 on YouTube. That was pain and suffering when that was happening. They still
it's not
some of them still exist actually. Like you'll get like Doomsday Scene 13. If you search that up, you might find one. It's like a 4:3 clip at 240p of the episode.
And here's the thing. I don't think anyone who actually thinks this, but we obviously don't inherently think using 4:3 is bad. That's not what we're saying. Because I don't know if you've seen clips of this. I doubt you've seen it, but there's a film called The French Dispatch, I think it's called, that uses 4:3 that came out recently, I think like last year. But the framing of how the camera is using that ratio is like really creative.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of 4:3 that I really like.
Yeah. It's just people like, I think, using it to be a bit artsy, then it becomes a bit pretentious. And it's just like, but for this guy, I mean,
speaking of Classic Who, it actually works for the symmetry of the title sequences because of the 4:3 being very square. It actually makes the title sequences very symmetrical.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, the one we're covering today is a Wingy Media video. This is coming full circle because we haven't done a Wingy Media video since the first ever EDAR. That was
2 years ago now.
Yep, that was on Patreon for a lot of it, and then was
a test one as well.
And it was re-released recently to the public, and it was when he bashed Mission to the Unknown undeservingly.
Yeah, I remember that. I don't remember. I remember us covering it. I don't remember what he said about it.
I specifically think that was the first time you got like properly exposed to shit Classic Who takes.
Yes, I guarantee that.
Because I remember there was a phase. I was just like, oh, is it just New Who because it's like what we've grown up with watching as it's been live. And I said to you, I was like, no, trust me, it's the same thing with the old show too. There's plenty of shit.
And now that I've experienced a good, not like obviously like a lot, but a good chunk and a whole era, so I can get that sort of like
you got a sample size.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I see more cringe takes as I've ventured into the classic world.
And I would say that the Davison era is a good sample size because it's pretty. Not. I don't mean this as a bash to quality, but I mean in terms of its storytelling. In terms of what you're exposed to with it and the size of it and everything, it's kind of structure-wise like the average for a Classic Who era, so you kind of get like a good sample of what it's like.
Yeah, like I think the Peter Davison era was like it's like honestly it was so easy to watch, like, even in like the bad ones, and there wasn't a lot of bad ones to be quite honest. There were some average ones, but nothing was like terribly bad most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, look,
it was just really easy to watch.
Yeah, I mean, look, for as disastrous as something like Warriors of the Deep is, I do think it's can be quite a laugh if you're in the right mood.
Yes,
but no, I think a lot of it's I think a lot of it's really solid.
I agree. Honestly, I think it is the most if there's an underrated era of the show, it is the Peter Davison era. I would
Probably,
say.
yeah. I'd probably say so. I mean, it used to be the Hartnell era, but I think that's gotten a reappraisal. It was for a long time the Troughton era, but that's probably.
Well, I
'cause of
think,
the-
and I think I
the
would
mi-
also say I think
the
because
missing
have that-
episodes were a big problem with that.
But I also think, like, well, obviously we have seen cringe takes on the first Doctor from a lot of people, but I also think it still has that, the image of it being the first, you know, it has that sort of prestige to it where it's
Yeah.
never really going to be something that is going to get bashed, like, unfairly, in a sense, if you get what I'm saying. But with Peter Davison's era, it's like it is the most.
Well, at least in the last like
I won't-
5 years, I'd say it's been pretty bashed. Aside from the stands,
Yeah, I would say it's
Which
the
is-
one that I
which is
think a lot of
interesting.
people either bash or don't talk about enough.
It's interesting though because when the 80s aired, it was the most liked era of that decade. Which is, but then that's been flipped on its head recently, probably because at least tone wise, it's probably the most vanilla by comparison to the others. Because season 18 is quite avant garde, and then obviously Colin Baker and Sylvester McCoy's eras are quite, I guess, they're a lot louder in what they're doing than, like, they're much more I don't know what the word is, but they're not as, because I do think the Peter Davison era is really good, but it's quite like what you would expect Doctor Who to be like in the 1980s, like in concept, if you know what I mean. Whereas I feel like Colin Baker's era to me feels more 80s than it does Doctor Who, if you get what I'm saying. It feels more like 80s sci-fi, whereas I think Peter Davison's era feels more like Doctor Who to me than that. And yeah,
Peter Davison's era is very Doctor Who to me when I watched it.
Yeah, like it's quite seamless with a lot of the rest of the show, and I think that's probably why to a lot of modern audiences it might come off as being a bit vanilla because of that, which is not, it isn't true. It's just that they're only watching it at a surface level value, so they're only really seeing it for what it is on the surface, which is very what like other Doctor Who is like, and so it's not really giving them anything they haven't seen before. Whereas if you actually watch it like with all of its author's intent, it's actually much better than people say it is. As opposed to something like, if you watch, like seasons 22, 23, and 24, a lot of the appeal is on the surface, and therefore this sort of crop of people that diss Davison's era, they have all of what they want at the surface for them to access, if that makes sense. So, yeah. Anyway, but for a long time, it was actually Troughton's that was most underrated because there was so many missing episodes, and before there were animations, there was just no other way to watch them other than reconstructions. And now that almost all of his era is either found or animated, it's made a huge difference because it means you can see more of it. I still think there are elements of that era that are still overlooked, but the actual second Doctor himself is very popular in the last 10 years, I'd say. And for a long time, Hartnell was, until they did the Twitch marathon. That's when it really turned around for him, which I'm really happy about. And I hope that Davison gets his reappraisal next, because, yeah. I would say, yeah, actually, Genshaw Prime kind of makes a good point in that I'm gonna slightly deviate off what they said though. Is I feel like Davison's Doctor and possibly his era feels the most like New Who out of Classic Who.
I would say yes. It's not the same.
I'm not sure though, because
it's the
I
most.
I think in terms of his characterization and his performance, I would say yes. He's out of the classic Doctors, he's the most like New Who.
Oh yeah, because you can see the natural progression with his character as the seasons go on.
I also think it's there's bits in the 70s that are very new who, like, especially late Pertwee, after you get past the grittier stuff, the Barry Letts portion of Pertwee's run is very new here. Outside of the effects, but I mean the storytelling is very new here. And also all of the New Who writers are influenced by Tom Baker's run, so that's always going to be part of that. And then I would say that there's definitely bits of Moffat and Chibnall's writing that is very late 80s in some respects, especially like stuff like The Timeless Child and Hellbent.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there. We're not here to talk about those two. This video that Wingy Media uploaded... Well, you never know. This video that Wingy Media uploaded this week is called My Worries for RTD2. So this is the third time this has been the central focus of an EDAR.
People's worries for the new era post-Chibnall.
Yeah. So the first time we did this, it was when we announced the news of it, and we covered Marcus's why he doesn't think RTD1 was very good, and his concerns for the changes that might come for the second. And then in the
Which
second...
involved a lot of really bad takes from RTD Era 1.
Yeah, that a lot of it was just simply misinformation, really.
Yes.
Informing takes. And then the second video we did was Counselor Geeks saying that RTD was never perfect, quote unquote.
Yeah, the one we did with Sky and Tin, and that was an odd one as well.
Yeah. But yeah, we are now here for the third video. We're coming full circle.
I would say that I think it's absolutely fair to have some concerns on the surface level, because I doubt it is going to be better than RTD1. Like, I don't think it's going to reach that level, because I think that's a really incredibly high bar. But more times than not, the last two videos we've covered, a lot of the points that have been brought up have not been... They've just not really come with any real evidence to support the worries.
Yeah.
And they've been often like misunderstandings of what the first era did as well.
Or just literal dictionary definition fuck-ups, like Mr. Tardis did in the last EDAR.
Yes, that's a trend anyway with all videos we seem to cover when it comes to more of the fundamental aspects of writing.
Yeah.
It's just clear not understanding what is being said by either critics or just not understanding what is being said to them within stories.
Yeah, because it's weird, because I'll turn around and say to them, well, if what you think we're saying was what you think we're saying, then you'd be right. But that's not what we're saying, because what the words mean to us is not what you're saying the words mean.
And I agree with Prime. Honestly, feels like people only do these RTD2 could be trash guys videos for clout.
Oh,
I agree.
Can't use that word.
Go a bunch of clout chasers.
You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?
No, I don't know the meaning of the word.
Oh,
no.
Just realized my mouse clicker is on screen. I feel like I'm a high school teacher.
Well, hopefully we'll learn something.
Yes. Anyway, let's get on with it, shall we?
I guess we shall.
Hey guys, it is Wingy here, and welcome to a brand new video on my channel. Today, I want to talk about the upcoming
that's really
new
noticeable.
era.
Oh, that's not great. Come on, don't wear the same relative like colors as the background you're using for a green screen. Come on, guys. Wear some bright clothes that wear bright blue. I don't know.
I'm just really sad because his old background was just fine. Like, don't fix what.
Yeah, you don't even need backgrounds. Like, this doesn't. It's like the process of wanting to have this as your background for your video of you just talking. I remember Council of Geeks did as well back in like their like old videos where it was like of the 12 Doctor TARDIS. I remember it doesn't look good. I don't understand this. Like,
Yeah, it's like
unless you're gonna have like some like custom made art that is like more central around your channel and your personality or whatever, that could be cool. I think that's totally fine. But when it's simply just a PNG of the set of the TARDIS and it looks like this, it looks so. I know, I get it's a YouTube video. This isn't a full production. We're fully aware of that, but it looks really cheap.
Yeah.
It's not appealing to look at.
I mean, I would have imagined, given that he's more of a classic Who fan, I would have thought that he would have gone for practical effects over special effects.
Like,
but there
yeah,
you go.
why not just like a animated background of like,
or I don't know. How about what he had before, which looked real?
yeah, yeah, you know,
because it was.
Yeah, I don't get this. I don't get the process of this. I don't know why this is better than either just using an actual background of a desk or just a wall would look better.
I think
Because like again, it just like
could
you can see through his goddamn head.
Yeah, yeah. I think
I don't want to make jokes about how his takes are brain dead.
Okay.
That just seems insensitive.
Well then, I'm pretty sure Tharies just has a green screen behind him and doesn't key it.
Does Fairies do face cam videos?
Yeah. His leeks.
Well,
his
I
leeks,
don't watch.
Callum. His vegetables.
Ah.
Yeah. I dare not do an
just
impression.
like, not only is this look cheap, even if he was wearing clothes that suited the background of the green screen, this still does just like, yeah. What's your problem with Wingy? We don't have a problem with him specifically.
I have a problem with his production like decision.
Yeah, we're just talking about the production of like what we're seeing. That's all we're doing.
But we're talking about the fact that he chose to replace his perfectly fine background that he had before.
Yeah, like I remember that video he did. It looked perfectly fine. It was like nice camera and a good, nice little setup. You know, wasn't terrible.
I don't particularly like the editing style, but that's a different problem.
Well, this is just like and this is coming from us who edit like pretty regularly for our own videos. Like this is not hard to do. Like you just film yourself in the background, you get a picture of a TARDIS interior, and then you chroma key it, and then that's it.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that he does a lot of weird cuts, and I think it might actually be worse now that he's got a green screen background, because it's going to be a static thing. As opposed to,
it's just I simply it's a simple. I don't really understand the process here.
I mean,
it's just it simply just doesn't look good.
It's why as a kid I never liked watching like the weather presentation of the news. Because it's just like looks so bizarre.
Well, you don't like being lied to, because obviously it's fake news.
What fake weather?
Yeah. Well, that is a meme. That's a meme. That's like a country joke here. It's like the weather is never right.
Yeah, it's fake news.
Or the weather forecast is never right.
Yeah, they say that in Landfair, I said silly go, there's going to be rain, but actually it's sun.
Yeah. Well, over here they're saying like during April there's going to be like massive heat waves, and then literally the first day of the month I think it snowed. It's really funny.
That'll be England for you.
Yeah.
I mean, I live in an isthmus.
At the very least, it was the last week. It snowed like I think on 2 separate days. It didn't settle, but yeah.
I live in an isthmus, which means I live between 3 harbors, and so our weather is schizophrenic. Like it just changes all the time.
Yeah. And I also just want to say, and this goes for like anybody we normally cover, unless like certain people when we normally say so, But anybody we normally cover, we never really have a personal problem with. I just want to put that across, like, ever.
Yeah.
Well, I think the only times it's ever gotten like we've got annoyed with people we've covered due to stuff on Twitter or whatever would be like, for me personally, Mr. TARDIS and the constant bad faith I was being given by him, and like a lot of people having the same defenses as him. But other than like that, which even then I like, he has a different idea of what media criticism is, which I don't think is very good. But like even then, I was like, I don't have a personal problem with him, and I don't have a personal problem with this guy either, like at all.
Yeah.
So I just want to put that across in case people, think
I strongly disagree with a lot of these people on things. But
I do too.
A lot of them seem like they're pretty nice people. Like Joe Brennan's a real nice guy. Views Adipose is a really nice guy. Who else have we covered? Like Marcus Cotton's a really nice guy, even though he's got insane opinions. He's a really nice guy. And you know, like George Shedd is a really nice guy too.
Well, yeah, and I think for me, I obviously don't talk. I don't really watch most of the people we cover, like outside of EDAR.
Yeah.
But I always imagine that I always try to be best faith and say I'm sure they got good intentions. I'm sure they're good people. Just I think their takes are kind of shitty sometimes.
Yeah, Counselor Geek seems real cool. Like Jay seems like she's really good friends with her, and I mean, there's a lot of really nice people in fandom. Like Adam Martin's a great dude. Dominic G. Martin's fantastic. Just super nice to everyone. So, yeah. The only one that's really tested my nerves morally is probably Bolstrek, but that's obvious. Everyone knows that. Bolstrek's
I don't really count Bolstrek in this sort of circle.
It's just so weird.
He's like this weird in between of like the fandom menace, even though he's not actually a part of that. As far as I'm aware, and like Whovians, but he's in this weird little bubble of his own. Really,
yeah, it's so weird because he used to be this real niche channel that did like collection videos, and then as soon as Jodie Whittaker was announced, he hopped on the bandwagon and got like massive demographics. Basically he hit the algorithm is what happened, and that's when he started to really
Have you seen? I'm going to post this picture in the Discord chat, but I don't know if you've seen this, but this is very funny and very wholesome. That's very wholesome.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything against Wingy personally. He seems like an alright dude, but I do think he has some strange opinions. Like, he thinks that Gridlock is like one of the worst New Who stories, which is I think is absurd.
Ooh, that's a strange one.
Like, he had it in his bottom 10. I think that's fucking bizarre. But again, it's probably just some weird surface level read of it.
Yeah. Anyway, we've talked about the production. It's not very nice to look at, to be quite honest, but I guess we should continue on.
Yeah, alright.
Of Doctor Who with Russell T Davies coming back as showrunner. Now, I did a similar thing when Chris Chibnall and Jodie Whittaker took over, where I spoke about my...
Jeez, this is Uncanny Valley, seeing his head move through those wires.
Yeah, I know. It's really, I don't want to keep talking about it, but it's really not nice for the presentation of this video.
It's very distracting.
He also thinks Series 3 isn't very good. Well, most...
Yeah, we know.
I don't want to say most, because I think a lot of people do like it, but there's also a lot of people on Twitter who don't like it because they don't understand it. I'm just going to say it.
And also their wishful thinking points in the opposite direction of what it's actually doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's actually meant to be, it's meant to be relatable to an audience that understands what it's like and to empathize with, as opposed to latch onto something and then succeed victory from it. You know, like a lot of other things do.
Hopes for the upcoming series and my worries for the upcoming series, and I'm going to do the same thing again. So in this episode, I'm going to be talking about my worries for Russell coming back, and then I will do a video in the next couple of weeks talking about what I'm hopeful for. But as always, I have to see the balance in everything. I've got to see both the positive and the negative, and
Yeah,
I do
I'm fine
have
with
a
that.
couple of worries about Russell coming back, I'm not going to lie. So let's get into it. Now, first and foremost,
Actually, before we hear his reasoning, what do you think is the biggest negative that could happen?
I'm not sure. I think if I was to be like hyper like as negative as I probably could be, would be the fact that he could just rehash the same story beats of the first era. But my thing is, I don't think he's going to do that because I don't think that's the kind of writer he is.
Hmm.
That's the most I'm thinking.
I mean, it's hard to think. The only thing that just comes straight to my mind is that we don't get many alien planets like last time. But that's a very
Sure.
superficial thing.
Yeah, like for me personally, I'm not that bothered by something like that, but
But
it
okay,
would
I
be
guess,
nice.
okay. Let's. I'll take it a step further. I'll talk about why that is. So
Mhm.
one of the biggest reasons why I mention that isn't just because it's cool to see things that are different, obviously,
Mhm.
for escapist reasons, but the more substantially, in terms of the world building, it's much harder to execute
Yes,
new
yes.
world building than it is to execute established world building, and that's why I would really like to see him test himself with alien worlds, because it means he would have to juggle
Yeah.
that.
And one of RTG's strengths was world building, but
Mhm.
more specifically, it was about Earth's world building, which was still bloody excellent. Let's not get it twisted here.
So
It was still
I would
very,
be
very, very good.
I would be interested to see him try that with alien worlds and see if he could try and pull
Yeah,
that off
that would
too.
be really interesting. Like for most of a season, depending on how many season takes over, could be one, could
Yeah.
be 5, I don't know. But I would really like to see a season, mostly not for the entire time, because obviously there will be episodes where we do one-offs. I would hope, but I would like a season where we do spend a good amount of time within a certain either world or like
Mhm.
setting.
So the Tom Baker era is probably the one that has the most alien planets out of any in the whole TV show, and
Mhm.
but you have to remember that the stories were longer back then, and there was a lot of six-parters as well, and so that is a factor. But yeah, that's kind of one of the main things that I would be worried about is he would again be like, well, I want to do my world building this way, and I can't do it if I do multiple planets. And that would suck.
Um, Formatting maybe is being said in the chat, and it's like, I can understand. I can understand some people having an issue that it would be the same familiar format. I personally am not that bothered by it because I think, like, as a story, I think
Yeah,
if that's Russell's wheelhouse, he should stick to like not a stick. He can experiment if he wants to,
yeah.
and I think he's got the capabilities of the writer
You
to do
know,
that. But if he wants to stick to the same format, I think that's totally fine.
I
It's
think
just the context of what
I
within that
do,
format.
I think some people will probably disagree with me on this because people really like to see a variety and also to see young writers get a time to do something that they've been dreaming to do. But creatively speaking, I would like him to be a bit more picky with his guest writers and have
Yes.
and in that also that would mean that you can have more multi-part stories because you have less writers.
Yeah,
So
that would be really neat.
because if you remember, like technically it wasn't a different in terms of episodes, but he did tie a lot of stories together into them in series one. But he was very picky with his guest writers in that first run, and he wrote most of the episodes himself.
Mhm.
But then as it went on, he started to include a lot more names, I think that actually I'd like to see him write longer serials and have less guest writers, be a bit more selective about them. But that would just be an idea that I would have. But, I mean, again, it could just be the opposite. You could have lots of guest writers and it still be good. But I just think it would be better if it was less writers. Less writers with more focus and more episodes.
Yeah. Another one is romance been said in the chat. I don't think I would really be surprised if he does romance again.
I mean,
I'd
if
be
he
really
did,
surprised.
I
'Cause
mean,
that's
if he did do it, it would have to be very different because it's been
it,
explored.
if he
So
does something romantic, I think it'd be more involved with a companion, not the Doctor.
yeah. Oh, I can see that happening absolutely. But
Yeah.
but
Which
like the
I think it's
a lot
I
of
think
it's
that's really easy to do.
yeah, a lot of with the Doctor, a lot of it's been explored. So it's not really. I think even now with Tasman, it's so unnecessary. It didn't need to happen.
Yeah, because
I mean,
it's like, God.
I mean, to be fair, like in terms of likelihood, having companions fancy the Doctor is not inherently a bad idea, because
No, it's never
but
inherently bad.
it's the fact that it's a storyline about the Doctor and a companion. That's where it's a strange choice because I mean, to be fair, it wasn't even the original idea. It was something that happened
Nope.
because of fans.
It's because the fandom wanted it for
Yeah,
some reason, and they've
yeah,
now got it.
and it wasn't necessary because we've already seen it explored with RTD2 explaining why the Doctor can't have a relationship with
And
a
they've
human.
got 2 episodes to pay this off now.
Yeah, and also with Moffat, he tried to pay off that whole arc with River, and it didn't really work in a lot of ways.
He
But,
didn't do it.
but yeah, this whole thousand thing wasn't necessary, and it's still. I'm not against the idea of romance existing as a theme in Doctor Who. I just think it's already that story's already been told, so we don't need to really see it again. I'd be surprised if he did it again because I don't think it's really necessary. But you know, could be surprised. I would be, yeah. I would actually, I would like to see him. One thing I would like to see him do again, though, is a lot of political stories because I think Doctor Who's in
Yes.
desperate need for well-written political stories because I don't think it's been like that for
Really
a
is. It
very long
hasn't
time.
had that
Because
for,
I don't think
yeah,
either, I don't think either Chris Chibnall nor Stephen Moffat are very good at it.
I agree.
Because
I
Chris
think
Chibnall's
Russell was
just
sort of
Chris Chibnall,
the master at that.
Chris Chibnall doesn't really get what politics is, and he doesn't really write very well at all on a basic level. So that's already makes his political stories like really buggered. And then with Moffat, because he's especially with Doctor Who, he treats it like it's kind of he doesn't take it with that sort of real world view level of perspective, and so a lot of his political stories end up a bit idealistic, and they don't really land because he views it from like a childlike sort of what would a child's fairy tale answer be to this political problem, and I think that's a bit weird, personally. So yeah, I don't think it's been done very well in the show in a very long time. I think Russell was very good at that. I think there's a lot of classic Who writers like Malcolm Hulke and Robert Holmes that did it extremely well. Terrence Dix did some really good stuff too with that, and also obviously all the historical dramas as well in the 60s were fantastic. Well, not all of them, but most of them were. So yeah, I think that's something I would like to see him do again, and I know that we know he can do it because he's done it to an even higher degree since then with his serials. So mixing those two things again, like the political drama with the world building and having that tie into alien worlds could be very interesting, I think. And now that it's 2022, I guess is when he's starting to shoot with a independent company with a bigger budget, better technology at his hands. I'm sure he has that kind of freedom, or at least I would guess he does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
This, I don't actually think will be a problem. I do have a little bit of a niggle in the back of my mind where I'm like, oh, I hope it's not the same as it was before. Because that's a worry. Like, we have
No, I guess
seen
this is we
what
kind of
Russell's...
cover that.
yeah, I mean, I know there's always going to be similar traits because he's the same person writing it.
Well, yeah,
I
it's the
get-
same writer. He's got his
but-
same sort of style, but
Yeah,
I honestly think the fact that he's now made two really successful, well written shows years and years, and it's a sin. I think there's a lot of new stuff he's got in his belt. I really do, and I think there's going to be I think it's going to be. I think people are going to be taken aback by what new stuff he does. I think.
yeah. I get what I know where he's coming from. That what he's basically probably trying to say is that I hope it's not a rerun because that would be terrible. Because that would, and I think that honestly, that's kind of to actually be worried about that. I think is a little not trusting him because I don't think Russell's ever done that in his career. He's not the kind of person that's going to rehash his stuff because he's very creative. I'd be very surprised if that's what he did. Like if it was all just a rehash, I can only see that being the case if the BBC actually cornered him and threatened to cancel the show, and the only reason he did it was to keep it alive. Like it would have to be him unwillingly doing it purely for the survival of the show, as opposed to what he actually wants to do for that to happen. But I don't think that's what's happening, given that we know that he's got Babel Studios with him. I think he will have a lot of creative control. I think he will get to do what he wants to do. And I don't think that rehashing what he's already done is what he wants to do. Like, okay, we may see a couple of returning characters, sure. But on the whole, I think, especially after the anniversary,
I have more faith of RTD bring back returning characters and characterize them as they were, or at the very least just still in character than any other writer.
Yeah, sure. I think that we may see a lot of stuff in the 60th anniversary that is recurring stuff, but I think the 14th Doctor's first season, I think, won't be a rehash of, like, Series 1. You know, I don't think it's going to be anything like that. I think it'll be something completely different and new.
T. Davis can do with Doctor Who. We obviously saw it back in 2005, all the way up to 2009. Those 4 series, as well as the specials in between as well. I don't want a repeat of that. And that's not to say that that era was shit, or it wasn't enjoyable, or it wasn't good, or, you know, any of those things, but we've seen it at this point. Like, we've seen series 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the specials, like I say. We don't need to see a rehash of it again. I want to see something fresh, and I want to see something new. In my reaction video to Russell coming back, I think I mentioned a similar point. Like, one of the reasons why I was kind of against him coming back was because he's had his time on the show. We've seen his vision for Doctor Who.
One thing I would say about that, though, is that you can literally flip it on the other side of the coin. It's now been like 10 plus years. It'll be like 13 years since he's gone. 13 years is a long time. A lot of new ideas can burst through in those years.
One of the best
And
analogies I've heard is that what was it? The guy who directed Casino Royale did James Bond films before that. I think he also did GoldenEye, which was Brosnan's first, and he also did one before that. And all of his films are very successful. And so it's like whenever Bond is in trouble, they get him in to do another film.
Martin Campbell.
I think that's it. Either the writer or the director. One of
New
those
Zealand film director.
It's either the writer or the director. I can't remember which one it is. But I heard a story about that, and it's a good analogy to use. Because it's like, we have already seen their vision, but Bond's in trouble, bring them back, and they end up making yet another very popular Bond film that, you know, brings it back to its very popular status. Like, you know, after Die Another Day, Bond was kind of going through a bit of a death, and then once Casino Royale came out, it was mega popular again.
Yeah, I remember how popular it was at the time.
Yeah, it's the same thing with GoldenEye. Like,
And here's the thing: I do not think that Russell's going to use the exact same format. I don't think he's going to do 4 seasons and then specials at the end. I don't think because I think that don't think that's his plan. Because that'd be really strange.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's gonna.
I feel like it's going to be a season, 13 episodes, mostly one-offs, but with an overarching story being built to throughout the whole season, involving good characterizations.
I mean, just who the hell
well
knows?
well
I mean,
written
look,
plots.
hey, look, you know what? He might end up doing a serial where he writes every episode. That could happen.
He could do that.
It is possible.
I very much doubt that RTD2 will be like Force Awakens. I really doubt that.
Oh,
Because I don't think
God,
that's
no.
really what Russell is as a
Well,
person
because
and a writer.
I mean, Russell T Davies and J.J. Abrams as writers are polar opposite in terms of what they do. So I don't.
But they both have the same. In a sense, they try to do the same things in some ways. One though understands how to do it, and it ain't J.J. Abrams.
Well,
That's for sure.
that's because Russell T Davies writing wise is actually creative, whereas J.J. Abrams is like he has an admiration for things he loves. You know what I mean? It's more about he really
He
likes.
thinks he's trying. He's trying to be creative, but he doesn't know how to put all the pieces together in any way.
You know, I mean, I think J.J. Abrams is just inspired by things he sees. He's like, oh, I like that, and I like that, and I like that, and I like that. I'd like to do that because I've
Oh,
seen
this would
that.
be a cool idea, and it probably is a cool idea, but he executes it in the most baffling way possible, like everything to do with Kylo Ren, as an example.
Yeah.
Though that
Anyway,
was also Ryan's fault as well.
yeah. Well, Ryan Johnson's a whole different can of worms. He's more in the Stephen Moffat category.
He is honestly a Stephen Moffat, but in like all the worst aspects.
He's actually a bit of Moffat and Chibnall in some ways.
He's because he doesn't. His dialogue is pretty terrible, but he tries to do a lot of like.
But he's a lot more up his own arse, whereas Chibnall's quite humble for as shit as he is.
He's very humble. He's just incompetent.
Yeah.
That's just a reality of it.
Whereas Abrams is kind of halfway between Russell and Chibnall.
I feel like because with Abrams, I feel like he.
I think
it was
like
a big example with
Chibnall is like the center of the bad writing in this analogy, and then Moffat and Russell represent the different styles that deviate from that.
Yeah, because with Abrams, it's like I think I very much got this from Tross. Like he did try to fix it, but in his try, he made things worse in a lot of different aspects. So in a sense, like I don't think Abrams is a good writer at all. But at the very least, when I'm looking at him, what he tried to do, even though I would say Tross is the worst film of the sequels, I can appreciate the fact that he tried to fix things.
Mm-hmm.
It was still fucking garbage, though.
Yeah.
But Chibnall, I don't see him like wanting to fix his own.
Well, because I don't think Chibnall sees it as being an issue, though.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't see it as a problem.
Or neither Ryan Johnson. Like Ryan Johnson doesn't think there's a single good valid criticism in The Last Jedi.
No, that's because he's a fucking narcissist.
Yeah, exactly. That's crazy to me. Because I would feel like if I wrote a story, and I have written stories before, and a lot of them aren't good because I'm not I wouldn't say I'm a great writer, but I'm very good at analyzing stories because I'm outside the bubble of that kind of aspect. But if I wrote a story, and after maybe like a year or so, I revisited the story, I revisited the script, I absolutely think I could poke holes in what I wrote. Absolutely. And I feel like I would be man enough to know that I would have holes to pick at within a story that I write. So I don't understand.
Well, I mean, I don't,
the mindset.
because I don't take like, I don't take having mistakes in my work as like personally as some people do.
Mhm.
I just acknowledge that that's going to happen and it's inevitable.
Yeah, exactly. Like we
Like,
make
I'm
we
quite sort
both
of.
in
I guess I could say
yeah.
I'm a bit kind of fatalistic in that sense. It's like I don't really,
Well, yeah, well, we make mistakes, absolutely.
I'm not offended because I have because there's flaws. You know, that's kind of a.
Uh,
It's just a weird. It's a weird thing to get upset about. Like Ryan Johnson is offended because people don't think his film is perfect. It's very
and
strange.
he doesn't think anything. He doesn't think any issues that have been brought up are
You know,
valid in any way.
it's like he's trying to defend his child from being bullied at school. That's what it comes across as to me.
Hope that Russell would do something fresh and do something new. Like, this is Russell in a totally different place. He's had a lot more experience as a writer. He's probably got things that he's obviously very proud of with Doctor Who back in the day, but he's also probably got some regrets and wish that he did a couple of things differently. But my worry is that the
Where is he getting this information
I mean,
from? Is he just assuming?
I think he is definitely assuming. There's probably like some things that Russell wish he probably did differently, maybe. Because
Yeah,
I don't. Let's be honest. Not every Russell story is perfect, and not every Russell story
I'm
is
sure.
good.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's like I've heard some things, but a lot of it's very
Like something
technical.
like
I think
Rose, for
it's
example.
I think he's said that like a lot of his things that he wished he did differently were just technical things that he wasn't allowed to do because of budgetary constraints.
Yeah, that is also an aspect. Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Yeah, like there's things that he wanted to show on screen but couldn't, and so he had to find ways around it.
Hmm. Yeah, well, I definitely agree with the thing of like he's absolutely more experienced as a writer, absolutely, and
As
he's
in,
going to do some
I mean, I guess as
new
most
things.
would be really. It's kind of just goes without saying.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely goes without saying.
I don't like
But I don't.
this narrative that some people paint though, as if like he's somehow ascended to some kind of higher ground, as if he wasn't like already great back
Great
in the
before.
day. Like that's the weird thing to
Yeah,
me.
that's strange. That is very strange
It's almost like
because, and here's the
people
thing: we've both
a lot.
sung his praises with his last two shows as because they're very great. But we've always said that he's always been great. He's
Yeah,
always had this level of
yeah.
skill
It's
as a
I do
writer.
think that's a bit strange when people say like, "Oh, years and years and It's a Sin proved that he's so much better now than he was then." It's like that's weird to me.
No, I think I would still say that his era of Doctor Who is better than It's a Sin.
Yeah, on the whole.
I would
Mm.
probably say Years and Years probably has more of a say of
Oh
probably
well, I
being
mean,
on the
but
same level, but
what you're
even then.
comparing. Bear in mind, you're comparing 4.5 seasons worth of television to
Exactly, yeah, that's the
six
thing.
episodes. That's not easy
Yeah.
to do.
But I think I would also say that shows how impressive I think Years and Years is that I think that there's a lot of characterization you can pull from that and a lot of in-depth stories you can really explore and dissect on how well built it all was. Like, I find that very impressive. But
Yeah,
it's like I do absolutely agree that the fact that this weird little narrative, like, it's not massive, but it's definitely something that we've both noticed, as you've pointed out, that it seems like a lot of the people who either didn't like love RTD's first era, or at least thought it was like good but not excellent, and think it's a bit overrated or something like that, seem to have this thing that he's gotten better as a writer because of the last few shows he's made, which is really strange because I think like
it's
he's
it. Well,
always been
that
on that level of
well, it's
like consistency.
interesting. You mentioned the whole thing of him talking about things he wished he did differently. There was things he wished he did differently with It's a Sin. He's mentioned before that he wrote the script as 8
Hmm.
episodes and it got cut down to 5 by the studio.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So that's not
it
anything
was 5. Yeah.
old.
Mhm.
It's still happening now. That's probably why he's got his own studio now, so he can do whatever he wants to do without all these limitations.
Yes. He
I
wants
also, I would
complete
also,
creative control.
I also have a funny feeling that because he absolutely blasted HBO's like streaming service for being really unfair, it's probably why he doesn't have a deal with them anymore.
Hmm.
Do you remember when he did that? When he talked about how unfair streaming services were on customers and how they like suck all their
Yes.
money out for hardly any content and a lot of it's repeated?
Yep.
Yeah. Because RTD says whatever the fuck he wants that he truly believes. Genuine.
I would I would say Years and Years is better than Series 2, but I wouldn't say it's better than 3 and 4, or even 1.
I mean, I think Years and Years is pretty spotless TV, but it's hard to compare it to something that's that long in
It's
duration.
definitely not it's definitely better than 2, though. I think that's a certainty.
Well, I
The
mean,
other 3,
if
I
you're
think
comparing them,
yeah.
if you're comparing them like on, like if you're comparing them as if they're dollar bills, yeah, sure, but I don't. Again, it's difficult to compare them eye to eye when you consider how different they are in structure and format. Because quality is one
Sure.
variable, but also the fact that it's 6 episodes of one story, and then you got 10 stories across 13 episodes. That's also one story, and it's interconnected to something that happened before, and that's something that happened after, and also the fact that Years and Years operates on a meta as well. That's another thing you have to consider. That's actually, and that kind of works. It's a sin though. It's a bit different because it's a historical drama. But with Years and Years, it's more of like a potential future drama, and it operates on a meta as opposed to Doctor Who, which doesn't really. Like, there's obviously subtext in there, but it's not a meta. It's much more of a this is a fictional story. Anyway, let's continue.
The same format, the same sort of vibe and style. I'm worried that potentially we're just going to see the same sort of things again. It's not obviously going to be identical, you know, we're not going to get.
Well, I'd
Well,
like to hear him tell me what those specific things are.
yeah. But I feel like it's the same writer and slash showrunner, so it's gonna have that same. There are gonna be familiarities to it, absolutely. And I really hope people don't see that as, oh, he's just doing the same thing again. I really don't want that to happen
Well, it's kind of difficult
because that's really because that's
to not be the
yeah,
person you are.
exactly. It's really unfair.
Also, in terms of like the surface level part of it, he's using a different production team that's 20 years advanced. So that's also a thing.
Yeah.
So in terms of how the show is made and the way it looks and all that, it will be different because of the fact that it's 20 years later and the production team is different. It's a different studio. But in terms of creatively speaking, writing wise, it is still the same man.
Yeah.
Rose verbatim characters or end of the world verbatim, etc. But I do have that little thing in the back of my mind where it's like I don't want it to be too familiar, and I don't want Russell himself to go, well, you know what? Yeah, I am in a different place now.
I actually would like to hear him explain why he thinks that's a bad thing specifically with this. Like, is he saying that, and broadly speaking, he doesn't want it to feel different, familiar if it was any writer, or does he mean that specifically just for this writer?
I imagine just for Russell.
Yeah, because it's like if, say, I don't know, in 1995, Philip Hinchcliffe and Robert Holmes. Well, I guess Robert Holmes is dead, but if he was still alive, Philip Hinchcliffe and Robert Holmes like bring back the show, and would he be saying, "I hope it's not like the 1970s"? Would he be saying that? I don't know.
I don't think so.
I feel like he'd be like, "Oh, we're gonna get that Doctor Who that I really liked again." Probably what he would be saying.
I think that it's very much this is very much a because I could say the same thing if Moffat came back for, as an example. I think people would be saying the same things as what they're saying about Russell. Like, I hope it's not
Well,
the same thing.
Well, that's the thing, right? But with me is I would specifically talk about why that is, and I would talk about the exact examples of what I wouldn't want to happen again.
This is very vague so far.
But what I would say is, in good faith, is that the last time we had Moffat as a showrunner, I think he gave us something very acceptable. I think if it was if it was on the quality level of Series 10, I would accept it if Moffat came back. But there are things about his showrunning style that I would specify why I'd have a problem with it. And the reason why I'd have a problem with it is because of the problem that I had of it at the time. So, but with this angle, it seems like he's saying it wasn't bad for the time. I don't want it to be like that again because it would be too familiar. I want it to be different. But I just want to know.
I think it's very much you want something different.
Yeah, but I'm just struggling to figure out exactly what his motives are behind that.
Yeah.
I'm a different writer now, but this was successful back in the day, so I'm going to borrow from that. I would love it if, yeah, Russell did maybe take inspiration from it, not massively, but he tries something totally new and totally different. I'm just kind of worried that Russell will play it safe.
But here's the thing, like, for me personally, I'm fine if Russell does something like, if he really does something really different, I'm fine with that. But my main thing is, I want good characterization. I want good world building. I want well written, well constructed plots. That's really what I want. And I feel like if that happens, a lot of people are still going to praise it, even if it's a same format or a different format. So, and I think he's been very vague here.
Well, you hope so. You'd hope so, Callum.
Yeah.
But do you really know what the fans want, Callum? Do you really know?
Well, from the looks of it, they want Daleks to shoot and it be for comedic effect. And they can laugh at it because funny. Because it doesn't matter.
They want Joe Martin's characterization to be off screen.
And to just be very surface level.
Just not exist. It's not even surface level. It just doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. Yeah, that's true.
It's not
that's me giving a bit too much credit
because it literally only exists off screen. We haven't seen it.
Yeah, we've seen it. Like, how much screen time does the fugitive Doctor have? It has to be like 3-4 minutes.
I don't even know.
Less, maybe.
I don't even know. Is it more or less screen time than what David Tennant got in Goblet of Fire? I mean, to be fair, she appears in Fugitive.
Probably. It wouldn't be far off, not gonna lie.
She appears in Fugitive. She appears in The Timeless Children.
Okay, it's the thing though. I wouldn't include the Roof Doctor, the roof side of the whole character.
I know that. Oh, of course, I know that.
I would include the fugitive when she becomes the fugitive.
Yeah.
I know. When I would include it.
So
no. I'm saying that as I wonder how much screen time that version of the character has.
Yeah. So like really, I said, how close would be. She appears at the end of Fugitive for like 10 minutes of the run time, but I don't know how much of the screen time of that. And then she's in The Timeless Children for one scene, and then she's in Once Upon Time for one scene.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think she's going to be in not the next episode, but the one after.
She's going to be in the finale of the Chibnall era.
Oh, yeah. As will the Master and many other things, I imagine. Probably Tim Shaw.
Most likely. And it will probably be trash.
Yeah.
I've actually not seen the trailer for Sea Devils because I don't care.
I wonder if Jodie's Regen story will be the worst one.
Honestly, it probably will be. At the very least, it'll be down on that level.
To be fair, I haven't seen Time in the Rani, so I can't judge that. But I've seen all the others.
True. It'll probably be okay. So if we're judging it just by New Who, just to make this nice and short-ish.
I think Time of the Doctor is the worst one. I think the Time of the Doctor,
yeah.
Or
do you think it'll be worse than Time of the Doctor?
I mean, Or I could see an argument for Twice Upon a Time, but I think it's Time of
Oh
the
yeah,
Doctor. I
Do
think
you
Time of
think it'll be
the
worse
Doctor
than
is
Time of the
worse.
Doctor?
I don't know. I think the regeneration scene will be worse, but I don't know about the episode because the Time of the Doctor is one of those
Oh
ones
yeah,
where
I think it will definitely be
so
worse.
the Time of the Doctor is almost entirely terrible until the last scene.
Last scene is good,
Yeah.
and it's definitely not good. It's definitely the
Yeah.
Jodie regen scene is not going to be better than that. There's no way. Absolutely not.
Twice Upon a Time has a couple of good elements in there. It doesn't really have any overall very
honestly think
standout
you can
bits.
redo Twice Upon a Time and make it good.
You could find a way.
You can find a way, yeah, absolutely.
It's pretty.
It'll be hard, though.
It's pretty vapid, isn't it?
Yeah.
But obviously, because it wasn't meant to happen. So Moffat just kind of did it.
Yeah. So I think
quickly.
we definitely like. I do feel bad for Moffat in that sense. He had to make a whole episode to.
It's a shame because the Doctor
try and justify
the Doctor Falls. It comes across like a regeneration story.
It's the perfect regen story for Capaldi.
So whatever.
Doctor Falls is great. It's really good.
I don't think that will be the case, but I just have that thing in my head. The second thing that I'm worried about, and this is something that I never ever want to see in Doctor Who again, and for some reason it keeps cropping up, and it was such a major part of Russell's era the first time around.
Yep.
And that's romance with the Doctor. I might do a separate video on this topic because I have a lot to say about it, but I despise the Doctor being romantically interested in not just the companions, just anybody. I don't.
Okay. No. No. No, 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 no. No. No, no, no.
We've had this conversation before.
We've had this conversation so many fucking times. What is so wrong about it? What makes it so terrible as an idea?
For some reason, people just have it in their heads.
Human now, given the context of the Russell era, yes, I absolutely agree he should not. However, that does not mean the Doctor can't be romantically interested in an alien that can live, for example, a long lifespan.
So in this case, Wingy is saying that it was never a good idea ever to do it. And that's what a lot of classic Who fans say, is that the Doctor should be aromantic and asexual always, forever.
Why?
Huh?
Because I just want it?
I don't know, looms maybe.
It's like if it's literally you just don't want romance in the show, fine. However, though, you can't argue that's inherently bad.
No. I think they're being selective. I think they're meaning specifically with the Doctor. Like, they're fine if it's other characters.
Probably, yeah. Like, even then, I would say.
So for example,
inherently bad.
like there's a lot of so a lot of the people that have this same opinion are absolutely happy about the romance with like Ian and Barbara, for example, or like Jamie and Victoria, or
anything
else really. It's just when it's with the Doctor they don't like it.
Here's a big claim that I'm going to make. Honestly, you can make a high art, properly well structured, well written story about the Doctor falling in love with someone. It could be legitimately like one of the best arcs in the show. You can absolutely do that.
I mean, that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted Series 6 to be, but it just didn't happen.
Yep. And here's the thing. That can absolutely happen, and if it happens one day, I will sing its praises to the high heavens of the writing gods. Romance with the Doctor is not inherently bad. Get new arguments. Or get arguments, I should say, because I never see any.
Let's see if he gives any actual reason.
Let's see. Maybe he'll change our minds. I don't know.
Don't like it with Grace. I don't like it with Rose. I don't like it with Martha, with River Song, with Amy Pond, with Yaz now. Like, I just think it is an awful, awful thing to put into Doctor Who. The main
Why?
reason being is the Doctor as a character is strong enough that you don't need that romantic interest there. You look at the classic series.
I don't really think that's an actual valid reason. I don't think that's a good argument. Because he's strong enough, he or she, whatever, is strong enough as a character already. So it's like, oh, we don't need it. That's what it felt like. What you just
as
said.
if romance is a crux.
No, they're not. Romances are like they can add so much to a character in terms of like the stakes within a story, like the relationships with people, what they like, the meaning of their relationship between each other. Like, as an example, let's take an example from a completely different thing. Star-Lord's and Gamora's relationship in the MCU is probably my favorite thing out of the MCU. I like absolutely like those two characters are so good as just characters, but together their like story and like Infinity War, for example, is so good. I fucking adore that because the fact that Peter actually follows through with the fact that he was going to kill Gamora for Gamora, that says so much. That says so much about their characters and Peter's character. And it's due to a romance story because they're romantically linked and how much they care about each other.
Do you think there's a stigma around romance in media that's being based on some very bad romance?
Yes, I agree. I think so.
You know what? I think Wingy Media just needs to watch Love Actually because that's actually a really good romance.
Spider-Man 1 has this like concept.
I mean,
let die the woman you love or sever the little children.
Yeah. Love Actually is written by Richard Curtis, who did Vincent the Doctor. It's like an Avengers film, but it's all of the famous British actors, and they're all in romances. It's got like Hugh Grant and Alan Rickman and Emma Thompson, and Colin Firth and bloody Keira Knightley and Chris Marshall, and that kid from Nanny McPhee and Game of Thrones. What's his name? The one that's in. I can't remember his name. Anyway. Oh, it's got Liam Neeson as well, that's right. And many, many, many others. And it takes the point of view of so many different people from different backgrounds, all in romance stories. It's fucking brilliant. It's a great film. I think
romance stories can be literally some of the best media.
Yeah, I think maybe it's this sort of stigma that romance can be terrible because of its tropiness in some areas of rom-com films and TV, like soap opera. And that's probably why a lot of quote unquote nerds don't like it because it's the opposite of what they want. But I think that's undervaluing what really well-written romance stories can be, and for whatever reason, Wingy is framing it as if it's, the Doctor doesn't need to have a romance story because they've already got all these other things. It's like, well, I would actually argue it just adds on top of everything that's already there. It
gives some more context to their character and who they are as people.
Yeah, and it honestly
makes them more real. It makes them more like in depth and has more aspects to be explored in stories or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much you can do with a romance story. It
gave us a personal POV into an alien character. I think that's really interesting.
Exactly. Yeah, we acted, but it's acted as if like it's inherently this like, oh, why are they doing this? It's not neat, or this is bad, or this is gross, or this isn't Doctor Who, whatever. And I don't get it because there's so many good romance stories are like, can it show so much of how well characterized two people are.
I'm gonna respond to Gantral Prime's point about at this point I wouldn't be a fan of romance, especially because of the history involved. The Doctor having a long line of exes feels odd. I'm just gonna remind you that the Doctor also has a long line of people that they've killed or let die, which I think is a much more extreme thing to think about than exes. I think I think you're framing it in the point of view of the stereotype of young people that have a lot of partners. but you're not remembering the fact that this is a character that lives much longer than we do, and their exes are from the point of view of them having long relationships that last like hundreds of years, like potentially. And the only reason why it doesn't last a lot longer in the show from our point of view is probably because the Doctor links up with a lot of humans that don't live that long and that they're incompatible with. So it's not. Again, this is probably just down to how romance is handled in a lot of media, and how it's handled badly in a lot of media, and how it's decided to create a lot of these stereotypes and tropes and negative connotations on stuff that turns people off. But actually, I think it just depends on the execution, really. I think that's one of the things that RTD actually did really well, was romance, because it explored the idea of why this alien, despite the fact that they would really like to, cannot be compatible with human, and that's why I would like that. I don't agree.
Rose and Nine's romance story is like really, really well crafted.
Absolutely, it is.
It's right there, and a lot of people miss it because I think there's really good like blink and you miss it stuff, but it's like very, very like well constructed and like
Well, I think it's
yeah,
because
Russell did
it's
a
not
fucking
because
great
it
job.
doesn't probably because it's developed and it's very because
It's not in your face.
because it's built up. It means that you don't have the characters actually confessing a lot to each other, because that's just how it happens in real life. And because of that, it gives it this like wiggle room for people to just like get out of it and be like, actually, it's not that, because I think it's this. And they're in denial of what it's actually doing because they don't want to believe it's true. For whatever reason, they don't want to believe it's true that the Doctor's in a romance story.
Just so limiting.
What do you think of the take that some people have that they think the Doctor is Nancy?
I don't like that.
I don't.
It's very because he's not human. It's very different.
I've heard Jay say they think that it's a bit strange that the Doctor, having lived for 900 years, is interested in someone that's lived for 19 years.
Don't. It's.
I think it's a bit of an undefined thing, really, because the Doctor's not really a human.
Yeah.
When you regenerate, it kind of changes the rules a bit. Think about it.
Plus, it's like it's more like they live longer, but it's like their lives are like a.
And also, I also think at least outside of like outside of series 6 and especially 7, I think the way that the Doctor views relationships is different to a lot of humans.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Doctor values a lot more than just, having children. I don't think that, and especially at that point in his life, I don't think that's really what the Doctor wants out of a relationship. And so I don't think that.
Plus, like with like Nine, it's more about what Rose does for Nine as a person, rather than it just being like physical attraction. It's about their experiences together, and it's about like what Rose did to really help the Doctor in that time.
Yeah, and so I don't think it would be more.
So to say
it would be
like
more
feels naughty, I feel like it's really, really unfair to the story.
Yeah, I feel like it would be a lot less. It would be a lot less easy to. It would be less palatable if it was a purely sexual relationship, right? If that's what the focus was on, then I'd be thinking, well, that is a bit strange. But that's only in the subtext of one episode, maybe 2 episodes that they did. At least in that series. But it was a footnote on their relationship, right? The Doctor dances as a footnote. It was one element that was explored, as opposed to what their relationship is really about most of the time, which is it is a lot more about the experiences, the soul, how one complements each other in terms of what they do for each other as people. Um, yeah, it's kind of it's kind of difficult to explain, but I think that's the kind of the point, really, because it's not really meant to be traditional. Because I kind of see the Doctor's romances a lot of the time. It comes across more like I am adding another family member to my life that is equal to me, that isn't my mother or son or brother. It's like he sees his romantic partners in that way, but it's like they take the position of a spouse, if that makes sense. Whereas a lot of humans, it's more about like, who am I going to have kids with? You know, the motivation is different, and therefore an age gap can be a lot more creepy in that context because of that connotation. But because that's not really the Doctor's motivation, I don't think it's as weird as people make it out to be. And also the fact that because the Doctor regenerates, it causes like when you're reborn, it causes like a different biology, right? Because even though the Doctor's 900, he's inhabiting a body that's about 40 years old at the time, which, given still in a human point of view, there is a gap, but it's not like obscene, I don't think. And I don't see it as being as weird as people think it is, because it's not as human as we are. It's kind of how I see it. But anyway, going back to like the central topic, I think Wingy doesn't want any romance with the Doctor at all.
Just inherently thinks it's not good.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, because that's just not
because
a
for whatever
thing.
reason he thinks it detracts from the character
Well, he just thinks it's pointless.
or unnecessary. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I get
Series,
from
and
this.
the Doctor doesn't need any romantic interest. Like, yeah, the Doctor loves his companions in the classic era, but it's never in a romantic way. Some people
Not directly, but there is.
No, not directly,
interpretation.
but there's an element of love and care.
I would say there's elements of romance in there for sure. I think that obviously he has a granddaughter at the start. I think that the Doctor and Jamie are very close. I think that the Doctor and Romana are very close, bordering on romantic. But I think because they're both from Gallifrey, I think their chemistry is a bit different to a human relationship.
Yeah.
I think the Doctor and Sarah Jane, like there is a heart in your throat tension to their relationship, like especially when she leaves. I think that's the same with the Doctor and Joe Grant. Like when those characters both leave, there is a kind of like unspoken tension to it. And I think that might be one of the reasons why a lot of these people, like these fans, are able to sort of wiggle their head around it, because they don't see it that way. But there is absolutely a strong, very, very strong feeling between those two characters in both those situations. There is also that with the Fifth Doctor and Nyssa, especially if you've seen Terminus, which is her exit. That is definitely there. And yeah, I would say there's certainly elements of romance in classic. I just don't think it's as explored because it's not a central focus. It's storytelling.
And I've and the other thing, like I've probably mentioned earlier in chat, like the Doctor even brings the fact up that there's like the difference between the Time Wars and humans in terms of like they wither and die. He has to move on. That's the curse of Time War. Like there's an acknowledgement of the fact that they are different. Yeah, if you get what I mean. It's like I think people don't. There's very much an understanding of like the writers understand like who these people are.
Yeah, and some fans, I don't think that they're self-aware about it, but they actually are. At least Russell was.
Yeah, Russell was very self-aware
He's very
about it, I would
self-aware
say.
about that, yeah. And so there's an acknowledgement of that, and it's kind of like the Doctor saying to Rose in that moment, it's like, I really want to be in a relationship with the person you are, but I can't be because of the human you are. And so that it actually is more self-aware than they say.
Now retroactively look back at it and go, oh well, he actually was in love with, in a romantic or sexual way, with Sarah Jane or with Joe or with Jamie or with whoever, and I'm like, no, he fucking wasn't. Doctor Who is a show.
I mean, are you gonna elaborate on that? Are you just gonna
No, elaboration not
behalf?
needed. Move on.
Okay.
Like we do all the
Joe
time. When we get something like this, we normally will say, "No, he fucking wasn't," but then we explain why.
has got so much going for it that to throw in this melodrama and this romance
here
and
we
this
go.
almost like will they
But classic buzzwords of the critics of the RTD era.
Yeah.
We're back, baby.
Because obviously romance is only a melodrama, right? It's only in
Melodrama
things,
is always bad, Connor. Don't you get it? We don't want melodrama on our Doctor Who.
Yes, because obviously romance can't exist anywhere else, right?
Romance can never be good in Doctor Who with the Doctor. We don't want melodrama. I'm sorry, but Doctor Who can be a drama if it wants to be.
Oh, yes.
I don't like. I think we've said this many times on this goddamn podcast. Like, I don't like when fans try to limit what Doctor Who can be. I really don't.
Well, I think melodrama is a bit of
Good.
a derogatory term for what they're trying to
It
say.
is, yes, drama. Doctor Who's trying to be a drama. The RTD era was trying to be a drama. Did it very well, by the way.
And again, like romance doesn't just exist in melodrama. It's just that for
Nope.
whatever reason they believe that that's where it belongs, which is not true. Romance can be fantastic.
won't they? It's just unnecessary, and it takes away from the great things that Doctor Who actually is.
Oh, God. Oh, man. For what it actually is, why don't you actually elaborate on that? That'd be nice, so we can actually understand what you're saying.
Yeah, how does it subtract? Give me a reason.
Why does the fact that the Doctor is involved, not even them as a person, is romantic, like is romantic to someone, but why is it such a problem that the Doctor is involved in romance? What does it take away? Explain yourself, please.
I mean,
Like, just the fact that he wouldn't.
I'm just gonna reply to Gantula Prime. Death to the author, but Peter Capaldi and Jenna Coleman have said that it was meant to be romantic. We'll put that out there. And it absolutely was.
They've said it was meant to be.
And actually, with the 11th Doctor and Clara, it was too. And that's not just Death to the Author, that's actually in the show. They confess it.
That they were or weren't meant to be romantic.
Were.
I
just think it's a very different dynamic, because with 11th Doctor, it's much more like they're playing it like he's a boyfriend.
Well, they in Time of the Doctor, they say that they pretty much say that Clara is attracted to the Doctor.
I think Samuel Davis said about 12 and Clara, he says, the reason why I love their romance is I don't even know what they are.
What? What does that even mean?
Apparently, it's enigmatic.
That is the weirdest sentence ever. I
Yeah.
don't even know what it means. That's what makes it great. What? That's just a funny sentence.
That man loves his mysteries.
Weak is not scared of romance, just poor romance. That's not what he's saying, though.
Yeah, he thinks he's using.
Doesn't even like.
He thinks he's using broader
He's being
strokes than he
very
is.
vague. Again, this is like a lot of problems with like a lot of the critics of the RTD era. They're very vague.
So what is it? Yeah, Wingy, what is it actually subtracting?
Is it subtracting the characterization of the Doctor?
No, I would say
Because
it
it's
isn't.
not. Exactly, that's what I'm saying. But if that's your point, you need to make some arguments on it so we can understand what the fuck you're saying. It's very vague, and I don't like that it's vague.
We live in a
Flora and Capadia
now
themes,
where
of
for some
course,
reason people just ship
Hold on.
the great
Did he just say we live in a society? I need to replay this.
things that Doctor Who actually is. We live in a society now.
We live in a society! Ah! We live in a society where romance is a distant memory. Is that right?
It is a
Doctor!
Where is the melodrama?
We live in a fandom where plot armor is a distant memory.
Where is the Doctor's sex life?
Where is the romance? You wouldn't give it to an ordinary companion.
Well, I thought it was melodrama.
I thought my jokes were bad.
Anyway.
Now where people just ship fictional characters.
Yes, that is actually a thing that's really annoying. I do agree.
Yeah, but you don't. Again, he's what he's doing is he's kind of gaslighting the situation a bit, where he's basically saying that romance equals shipping. A little bit.
Yeah. But I do agree with the idea that fandoms, a lot of fandoms, most fandoms, force ships that just don't exist.
Well, the Tasman thing exists because of shipping, and that's terrible.
Exactly.
It was
made into the show.
See, this is the thing though. It's like we were able to convince them to make Sonic look good in that film rather than what they looked like in the trailer. Yep. But the punishment of that freedom was it meant that we get fucking Tasman. That's also influenced by the audience.
Yeah.
Sometimes the people watching the show don't know what they want, or at least they don't know what the show needs to have. Ugh.
We live in a society now.
I cannot imagine a world where RTD hears about something that fans want in the show, and he's like, "Yep, let's do that," without giving it a second thought.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
I'm pretty sure he would be like, "No, I'm doing what I'm doing."
Where people just ship fictional characters together all the time. Me personally, I think it's fucking weird, and more often than not,
I agree. I think a lot of weird force ships are very strange.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rey and Kylo is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
I think in terms of pop culture, that's the biggest one. That's the biggest example for me.
But again, like this is not justifying why romance is bad, Doctor.
Yeah, he's not explaining why the romance inherently is bad. But he's talking about more stuff that's like outside the show itself.
Yeah,
he's just talking about the fandom at that point.
Yeah, and the meta is always going to be a problem with many things.
Yeah, if you want to criticize the fandom, I'm totally fine with that because I absolutely agree that a lot of fandoms do this. And
yeah,
it's
but
really
again,
weird.
I don't think you should compromise what you're allowed to put in your show because of the fandom. I think you should put in the show what's in the show. Because
you should put in the show
what the
story.
Because realistically, realistically, I could just turn my phone off and watch the show by myself and really enjoy it and not have to worry about the fandom.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you can if you wanted to.
Yeah, I do it a lot. I do it all the time. Dude, I do it with wrestling. I never, ever look at what fandom thinks about the shows because they're always wrong.
People just ship fictional characters together all the time. Me personally, I think it's fucking weird, and more often than not, it's detrimental to the show. Thing is, for me, with series...
Well, it's detrimental to the show if it's forced in without any justification. Like Phasma, like Kylo and Rey. But like Rose and the Doctor is not forced
Is he
at all.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but is he going with the angle of fans shipping in the meta is detrimental to the show, or is he talking about romance?
I guess he is. Well, what other point would we be making then?
I don't know. He's not talking about the show. He's just talking about shipping.
Like this is more like this video is more, especially in the last minute or so in the video. This is more of what's wrong with the fandom.
Which is weird because I kind of
That's
agree
what
with that.
he's built like he's built to that moment of like the fandom does these weird ships that is detrimental to the show. So it's like, is this point going to be like, I hope Russell isn't influenced by that section of fandom
Oh, I don't
stuff?
I don't think he will be because he's not that kind of person.
Oh yeah, I don't either.
If Russell was influenced
But it's like,
if Russell was influenced by people, he wouldn't have the people that are paying him lots of money, and then go on record of blasting them for having terrible services. He wouldn't have done that if he was influenced, let alone by fandom.
yeah,
Like he's obviously very accommodating towards fans and all that, but when it comes time for him to create what he wants to make, he puts his fist down and does it. He's not influenced by random people. Fine.
Together all the time. Me personally, I think it's fucking weird, and more often than not, it's detrimental to the show. Thing is, for me, with Series 2, I don't enjoy that series that much now.
What about Series 1?
Because of the romantic interest.
What about Series
What
1?
about Series 1? What about Series 1? That has a romantic story.
Yeah, probably because.
So what about that?
Or
Dalek, Jay didn't Jay like tweet about this the other day or something? Like, there was definitely a tweet that Jay made in response, or made a tweet about the fact that the Dalek in Dalek said, "Save the woman you love." Man, wonder what the fuck that means.
Yeah, I think with Series 1, people are just in denial about it. Really.
Well, in denial, but also they focus on just the Time War affecting the Doctor aspect of the season.
Sure.
And it seems like a lot of people think that is just the whole season, and it's great. Don't get me wrong, it's fucking fantastic. But that's just one aspect of the season. It's the main aspect, but it's one of them. Rose and the Doctor is another big one, but that gets ignored, and people just don't really see it for some reason.
Wiggle their way around it, and then with Series 2, they can't deny it because it's just there.
It's there
because the arc's been moved. The arc's been moved to a point where they literally can't deny it.
Yeah.
So
as if Series 1 was the foundation and built its arc, and it had a great payoff, but the next season built on that. And while it wasn't perfect, don't get me wrong, still was very solid, I would say.
I just think there's this hilarious thing of like all these fans getting to a point at some point between 1 and 2, maybe with 2, where they suddenly were like, hang on, where did this come from? I'm just like, it was...
They literally kissed at the end of the season! Like, he did it to save Rose, yes. But there was some sort of build-up to it. Hell, even Blindwave saw it! Even Blindwave saw this!
Mate, when I was like 10 years old, I said to my dad, this is when I was 10 years old, right? not.
I
was
remember.
not,
Do you remember?
not the hypocrite I am now. When I was 10 years old, I would always turn to my dad and say, "They really hold hands a lot, don't they?" In series one,
Mhm.
I'd say they really do hold
They
hands a
do.
lot, right? It's like it's so obvious. It's just there. How do, how do
Do
people
you
not see
remember?
that?
Do you remember when Blind Whip did a reaction to the series one finale, and Shane said, "Finally, payoff." Even they realized it was a fucking romance story.
Well, at least they weren't in denial about that.
Exactly. It's fucking. If Blind Whip can fucking see it, how can not the actual fans of the show see it?
I don't know. I don't know what kind of. I don't know. I mean, look. Hey, I mean, this dude's not an incel. He has a girlfriend, but he knows what it's like.
Yep.
I
Yep.
don't know how he can't see the signs. But maybe they're just in denial. They're just in denial of its existence.
Doesn't exist.
Certain roles, I think it's totally unnecessary and was atrocious in Series 2 in comparison to Series 1.
So talk about why.
Why?
Just talk about it. Just talk about. Please talk about why. Don't just tell us that.
It's the series one romance was understated and mature, whereas Ten and Rose feels juvenile. As fucking universe.
I mean, I think Rose is pretty immature in series one as well. I think she does a lot of things that are
Because
very.
she's 18, 19.
I think Rose.
But she
Quite,
matures a lot during her run.
Rose.
Holding hands is absolutely romantic. Holding hands is romantic.
100%. It's
It's
probably
100% romantic.
probably been nailed into you by like weird.
Even if you didn't think it was romantic at the time, there's future context to support the fact that it's romantic.
It's probably been nailed into you by weird like helicopter mum primary schools that it isn't, but it is. Because like because they do like the whole thing of like kids holding hands or whatever at school, and it's just fucking bizarre. But no, it is.
I've held hands with my partners, and I find it very romantic. So like, yeah, it is.
But
Yeah, well, I don't. I would tend to do it just like if I'm walking with someone, I'm down the street. I'd probably hold hands.
I mean, I think
Something like that.
personally, just me, I think I find PDA when there's people around me that know who I am. I find that weird. But if it's like in public when it's just strangers, it's not as weird to me.
Yeah,
I'm a bit more.
I can see what you mean.
I'm a bit more private and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I can see what you mean.
Like
holding hands is absolutely romantic.
If I was an actor and I was doing it on TV and I knew that that like my friends and family were going to watch that, I'd feel very weird about it. Even though I'm playing a character, I feel very strange that they would be seen to do that. I don't know. It's just it's something. It's just. I feel like that kind of affection. You kind of like you're making yourself very vulnerable to the other person, and if people you know can see you that vulnerable, it's a bit like it's a bit weird to me. Anyway, yeah, just this guy is in denial of what series 1 is, and that is coloring his opinion on series 2 is what he's doing. He hasn't elaborated as to why she's atrocious and immature here and not there. I think almost some people have this angle of it's not even about her actions, they just think the writing is immature, which I would also disagree with. But it's just an extension of playfulness, really, and a lot of it's fueled by the fact that there's a regeneration in there, and the 10th Doctor is a lot more like playful and cocky and very I don't know what the word is, but he's very he's a lot more up his own arse than the Ninth Doctor is in some ways. I mean, to be fair, the Ninth Doctor could be like that too, but they are characterized slightly differently, and that does impact Rose a lot of ways because she's quite influenced by him, and so that's part of the reason probably why the attitude and behavior is different, because the energy is different, right? But that's that's all part of how they explored the fact of, well, what if the person that you fell in love with just suddenly changed and became a completely different person? How would you react to that? Pretty fucking crazy when you think about it. How would a 19-year-old girl react to that? I think it would be pretty drastic. To just see them completely change how they look and who they are, their traits and everything, but they're still the same person, still with the same memories and everything. And that's part of what they explored. But apparently, according to Wingy, that makes her atrocious, right? Because, having a selfish streak as one of your character flaws makes you a bad character in his eyes. So, yeah. But, maybe he would have an argument against my point, but he doesn't, because he doesn't actually present that. He just says what he thinks without explaining it. So how am I supposed to know what he thinks?
Look at some as well that have done that sort of thing where they have listened to the audience, which is more often than not a vocal minority who are coming out and saying like, oh, this character should be with this character, and then the writers do it. And
well, I think the only example that's ever happened is Chibnall. He's the only person that's ever done that, though. So I think that's a bit of a strawman argument. The relationships that happened with Russell T Davies' first run were not created by fans. They were created by him.
Yeah, it's the only one in Doctor Who.
They were created by the people writing the show, and it wasn't changed because of what reviewers said or what fans wanted.
That's the story Russell wanted to do from day one.
Yeah, so I think that's a bit false.
The show is just fucking moves away from the whole point of the show in the first place. Yes, I am talking about Arrow. That is the main thing for me, where I'm like, why the fuck did they do that with Oliver and Felicity? This should be a show about a guy who is a vigilante, who shoots arrows, he's fighting all these different villains and trying to save his city and all this sort of stuff.
I don't even think that romance is good, and I disagree with his
Yeah, I disagree with
what he's saying.
I don't think it's bad in concept at all.
No.
I think it adds dimension to the people.
So I haven't watched Arrow, but I've seen The Flash, which is part of the same universe as Arrow. It doesn't have a lot of good romance in it, but I don't have a problem at all with the fact that there's romance with superheroes.
Yeah, I think that's weird.
I think that makes... I mean, I literally just brought up the fucking example earlier with Gamora and Pia.
Yeah.
They should be going around saving the galaxy, making money, being a dysfunctional family. It's like, no. You can have a romance story between characters.
He's advocating for a simplicity that would just limit.
He doesn't want it to be in depth, and I don't think he realizes it.
Yeah. Probably why he doesn't like Gridlock, because it's super in depth.
Yeah, and that's as well. Like superheroes.
Yeah, I guarantee you, if I asked him why he doesn't like Gridlock, he's like, I want it to be about the crabs, though.
Does he not realize that every superhero as well, more times than not, will have a romance story?
Probably because it's relatable to us, right?
Yeah,
there's something that people.
Well, then we understand. We can understand what they're going through in certain situations.
It's such an essential flavor of drama, because it's such an intense, strong feeling, but it's also one that's necessary.
You don't even have to. You don't even have to reference the Raimi films. You can just say Spider-Man.
It adds stakes to a story. It also changes how characters make decisions. Like, for example, that scene in World War III when he says, "I could save the world but lose you." You know, that
Yep.
connection they have changes the
That's
way he makes
a dilemma he
decisions.
has to face. That's a choice he has to make.
Creates drama. It's not melodrama.
And you know
it
what Rose
creates
does?
drama.
He says, "Do it," and that says a lot about her. She's willing to sacrifice herself for like the world.
Oh yeah, dude, the Raimi Spider-Man films without that romance would not work. They would just fall apart. They would just be like these pulpy, you know,
Well, yeah.
action films.
Just talking about the concepts themselves, the whole point of like what Sam Raimi tried to do was to humanize Peter and give him struggles,
Yeah,
regardless of how it was
again,
executed. It's
I
what
know
he's trying to
that.
do, and a
I know
lot of
that.
media do that.
But you get what I'm saying in that
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm saying.
those films can't exist without it. Neither could the
Yeah,
Garfield
'cause that's-
films, and neither
Because
could
that's what they're
neither could
based on.
and neither could the second and third Tom Holland film, really, because they
It's about
they revolve around it.
people. It's about human people, like going about their lives. But if we're talking about superheroes, like they're having to, in most cases, live a double life, and it's that situation they have to deal with. And if they're involved with someone romantically, that's another
Yeah.
layer on top of that. How do they deal with that? How do they deal with that relationship?
You know, here's the thing: you don't have to do it, but it's not conceptually bad
No, you don't
to
have
do
to.
it. It's just one thing you can do. I mean,
Some of my favorite stories are
would-
romance stories.
what would Wingy think of the Batman? The Batman's got a romance in it. Does that just
Yeah, but it's not. Yeah, yeah. Exactly.
it's a detective film, right? But would he say that
But it's-
romance with Catwoman detracts from it? Would he say that?
Yeah.
Or would he say, like you think about Joker? Would he say that in that film, his obsession with that woman, I can't remember what her name is, but would he say that that detracts from the film?
I would hope not,
Yeah.
because that's another layer to Arthur's character. And that's how we learn more about him. Like that whole romance story actually has the justification. Like, it has the
Does he think
context
that?
of.
Does he think? Is he going to say that, I don't know, Han and Leia detracts from Star Wars?
I don't think he
Empire
would.
Strikes Back. I don't think he would he? No, I'd say it adds to it, really.
So I would have said, like, before this video, it's like it's a Doctor Who thing. They don't like it in Doctor Who, but the fact that he's now brought up like Arrow,
Yeah,
it's like, so do you just not like romance?
I don't know. I don't know if he does or not, doesn't he? Because he doesn't clarify it really.
Because like if you brought up, like, imagine if you did bring up Star Wars, we would say that Han and Leia is a good relationship story.
I hope so.
Because that's, I would say, like majority of people would say that, and I would think that is the case. I think their relationship is really well built up in Empire. So this is strange.
Yeah, very strange.
When you throw in that melodrama that overshadows.
Oh, fuck that! I hate that word now. Oh my god! Look, his hand is
Melodrama.
outside the green screen.
Just why?
They
Why
can't-
not just stretch it?
They can't see it on the stream, but his hand is like over a black screen.
Like, why would you not just stretch the background?
Melodrama.
Melodrama.
You know how a while back deserve was one of my least favorite words? Now it's melodrama.
Mm-hmm.
I think we deserve to not have melodrama.
It's just like, like, I know that Arrow does have bad romance as far as I'm aware. However, like, that's not inherently bad to have that as a concept.
Yeah, I've never understood the wishful thinking people have for the Doctor to always be asexual. I've never understood that. It's like, why? What's the reason? and they say, "Oh, because I think it's stupid if he's romantic." It's like, yeah, but why do you think that?
Why?
Explain.
Why? Well, okay, so if he's going to go by what he just said about Arrow, does he think it's a distraction?
I assume that might be what he think. A distraction from the archery
From the real
show.
story. The real story.
The real story.
Even though that is the story.
You know, he's probably thinking like, "Oh, Doctor Who's meant to be a sci-fi show. Why have we got this fringy romance?" That's probably
Melodrama.
melodrama. It's the same thing when Dylan's always like, I don't like how they have to constantly go back to the families. Why can't we go to like alien planets and shit? You know, it's.
I don't get that.
But he had no problem with the unit family. Let's not forget that. But that doesn't count because apparently it's not melodrama.
So, like, would he have a so would he have a problem, for example, with the opening scene in Army of Ghosts,
Probably.
as an example?
Probably because it's not. It's.
But wouldn't that,
it's-
like, for example, like the whole point of, like, especially in series 1, in the Slovene two-parter, that puts into, like, perspective for Rose, especially going through her whole run, how as she matures, she involves her family more in her life and is more aware of the fact that she should visit more and should take more
Yeah,
care of
but-
the fact that she's
but
going away.
He didn't like
As an
Rose
example?
from the start, though. He didn't care about her from
Yeah.
the first episode. He's made it very clear that because in his mind, she's too vanilla to care about in the first episode, and then from there
No.
devolves. This is his opinion.
The highlight of Rose is the characterization. That's the part of the episode which is strongest.
I know that, but he's specifically talking about Rose Tyler as a character in that episode. I've heard him say in one of his reviews that she's not interesting enough to care about because she's just a modern day human, and he wants someone that's completely different. He wants either someone from history or someone from a different planet. And the reason why he finds it easier to latch on to modern day classic Who companions is because they come from a time that's different from his own, whereas Rose comes from a time that is the same as his own, and therefore it's not what he wants. Whereas someone like I don't know, like what's a good example? Like Sarah, Joe Grant, for example, is from.
So if Dylan was like,
is Joe Grant's a modern day. Joe Grant is a modern day Earth companion, but she comes from
the problem with
a
that,
long time ago.
problem with that would be like if it's this with that sort of like way of thinking about Rose because she's from his time. So if you put Dylan in 1963, surely then he would have an issue with those characters.
Maybe, I don't know.
That
But-
seems really strange. I don't think he would agree with that if we would point that out to him.
I don't know. I don't know, man. You'd have to ask him. But I have heard
But I
him
don't
talk.
think it's yeah.
I have heard talk about saying that he doesn't think she's very interesting in that episode, and therefore can never really connect with that. And then when she goes back to visit her family, he doesn't care about that because he doesn't care about why she's invested in her family. Because he doesn't, quote unquote, doesn't want to watch Doctor Who to see that. He doesn't care about that.
All right. Okay.
You know, he watches it as if it was an anthology sci-fi show, even though it isn't.
It's strange logic that I don't think if you were to push on that, I don't think he would fully agree with that if you were to point out that example I just gave.
Well, there's so many things that he's said that
Plus there's more
things
aspects,
he
I'd
said
imagine.
before. Like there's times I've tweeted about things out of context that he's agreed with that completely goes against things he said before. Like there's if you remember a couple of months ago, I made tweets about like the end of time, but I didn't say I didn't reference the episode or put any pictures or say that's what I was talking about. I talked specifically out of context about things in the end of time, and he liked all of my tweets and commented saying he agreed with my takes. And I was flabbergasted. I was flabbergasted that he agreed with me.
Does he know the fact that you talked about end of time now?
No, he doesn't. He has no idea. Maybe if he's watching this.
Well, Dylan, if you're watching this, I hope you realize what you've done.
Again, it's his. If I were to assume his response, it's probably that in his mind, maybe he reads the End of Times character writing as different to what I said it is, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's just strange. But also, Rose is like, we get so much characterization for Rose within the first like 10 minutes. Like even the elevator bit in the opening, that shows like like Rose is like, she is in a sense quick on her feet. She thinks about the situation and tries to think logically about the situation that she's just been in. You know, that's something. That's some characterization. She's logical. That's something. It's interesting, I would say.
Mhm.
And then just as the episode goes, we get more about her life. We get more about her relationship with her mum and Mickey.
These are
But no, we
things
don't
that are
want melodrama.
these are things that are contemporary to 2005 Britain. I don't think Dylan gives a shit about 2005 Britain. I think he cares about the opposite of that. Yeah. He said before that in the last stream when we talked about characters you don't need to agree with them or relate to them for them to be good. He wholeheartedly agreed with that and went a step further and said that he's more interested in watching shows where characters are different to him because he already knows who he is and what his life is and wants to see something else. He approaches things with a very escapist mindset and wants characters to be different from himself, and he wants environments to be different, and he wants everything to be different. So because a lot of RTD1 has familiarity, that's a big turn off for him because he's sick of familiarity. He doesn't like contemporary Britain, in a lot of ways. So he wants to watch Doctor Who to see something else. Whether that be alien planets or history or contemporary Britain from a different time, like the 60s or the 70s or the 80s. Not, when he's lived. That would be my guess. But I'm sure he would be able to give a more comprehensive answer given it is his take. Right.
Absolutely fucking everything. You are wrecking the show.
Oh, gee, I think we're going to scroll back because I can't remember what he was saying.
Yeah, I don't know what he's saying.
David City and all this sort of stuff. When you throw in that melodrama that overshadows absolutely fucking everything, you are wrecking the show.
Why? Wingy,
Why?
explain. Just explain. Have the audacity.
Just explain. Bring up some examples, please.
Well, his examples at the extent of, well, Rose is fucking atrocious. And that's his example.
Yeah.
An arrow, apparently.
Yeah.
But he doesn't explain.
The thing is, this is a constant theme with videos we cover. It's very much a lack of elaboration.
Yeah.
Especially recently.
It's all based around wish fulfillment. There's no logic to it, no explanation to it. It's just wish fulfillment. And that's not widely appealing either. That it's much more well, to be fair, a lot of people are all about wish fulfillment and are happy to disagree about it. But I think it's much more effective, critically speaking, to talk about things that actually matter, like how you can add, experiment, and complement the story, as opposed to say, this is what I want to happen and this is what I don't want to happen.
I don't want Doctor Who to do that, and I don't necessarily think that Russell before crossed that line, but there is part of me that worries that he would listen to fans and be like, yeah, do what you did before with the romance, but take it another level.
No, I don't think he's going to do that at all. I don't think he's going to listen to fans.
We haven't said that. We don't. I don't really want that.
I don't think Wingy has a very good grasp of who Russell is as a person if he thinks this is what he can do.
No.
Not at all. Not
Yeah.
at all. He does not pander to people. He does the opposite.
No.
He goes bold and tries to change people's minds. That's the kind of writer he is.
Yeah.
Plus, I don't think the Doctor needs a romantic interest. I don't think the show as a whole needs romance, you know? Obviously, I'm not against romance.
That's completely arbitrary, and you're not explaining why. You could say that about anything.
Sure, it doesn't need it, but if it wanted to do that, it can.
Dude, the Doctor Who doesn't even need the TARDIS. You could say that, because it's true.
It literally didn't have it for a season.
It didn't have it for a season, and it succeeded massively despite that. I mean, technically, he does use the console in Inferno, but I don't think that counts.
But in the traditional sense of what it's mainly used for.
Yeah.
Didn't you have it for a season?
Yeah, what he's talking about is completely arbitrary and does
here's the thing. If the next season of Doctor Who took the idea of UNIT of taking away the TARDIS from the Doctor, and the Doctor had to spend time on a planet, even if it was just Earth, for a whole season, I think a lot of people would have a problem with that.
Yeah, it's crazy because when they did it in 1970, they didn't have a problem. Most people didn't have a problem with that.
People love that season.
Yeah. Loved it when it aired.
But I feel like if people did it now, everyone would be like, oh my god, we're stuck on Earth again.
Yeah. Wish fulfillment.
You want something different.
Romance in any TV show, in any film, but I just don't necessarily see where it naturally fits in to Doctor Who as a franchise. You know,
why not?
Depends on the context, and depends on how well justified it is. You can literally pretty much justify anything if you just put in the effort.
It's a literal sandbox show. I don't know how you can't see that.
It's really a sandbox show. There's certain things like that Chibnall's done that are just fundamentally broken. And to be fair, he didn't even try to justify it properly. But you can literally do so much with this show. You really can. Russell proved that.
If I were to base faith on that context, maybe he would say something like, it is a sandbox, but why would you try something as lame as romance is probably what he'd say. Indicating that all romance is lame.
Or it's simple. That is very simple.
Or dumb. It's for dumb people. Which is really silly. As if you have to be a dumb person to like romance.
Some of my favourite stories involve romance. Like, my favourite season of television involves a story about a woman figuring out her sexuality and falling in love with a woman.
Mm-hmm.
You know what that show is? It's The Haunting of Bly Manor.
Yeah, we know. I mean, look, Daniel Barton and Victor, something that Russell T Davies did, it was a romance, and them being in love changed the decisions they made.
Yep. It's what caused him to die. Spoilers if you haven't seen it. It's been like 3 years now.
Years it's been.
Actually, it's probably been 2. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't this take at all. I don't think it's reflective of the show. I don't think it's reflective of romance in general. I don't think it's reflective of even what he's saying.
It makes it seem like romance is like very limiting and very damaging to stories.
His criteria is arbitrary and it's wish fulfillment. It is not criticism.
I want to see.
It makes it seem like Russell is going to pander, which he absolutely won't. That's not the writer he's ever been.
Doctor Who as a franchise. You know, I want to see these high concept science fiction ideas. I want to see.
You say that like that didn't happen?
So romance can't be in science fiction, apparently. All right.
Wingy Media, I have you forgotten episodes like Blink and Midnight and Turn Left and many other things that do exist in Doctor Who in conjunction with romance? Do you want me to remind you that romance was in the episode Blink? It is one of the core things about the lead character when she meets Billy Shipton and Lawrence Nightingale. Romance is a key part of that episode, and that is a high concept bit of sci-fi. But the romance adds dimension, and it also changes why characters make decisions. It informs dialogue, and it ties into the concept itself with time travel. The fact that Billy Shipton asks her out on a date, and then he ends up at the end of his life on his deathbed repeating that same conversation, and that's part of the concept. So why is romance intrinsically subtracting from that when it can actually add to it?
If I'm trying to sum up what he's been saying so far in this video, what it seems like within stories that involve characters that are something more, that do more beyond the average human male, for example, it seems like he doesn't like it when romance is attached to that.
As if romance is
the
something that
main
only
character.
only ordinary people have. When
Yeah.
when actually the whole point of doing it with supernatural characters is that you get to explore something that you don't get to do in other shows.
And you see who they are as people, who they really are at their core,
Like what
and you learn a lot
the
about them.
question of is like, what is a romance like for a person like that? It is so different to us.
How do they how do they deal with that situation? How does the Flash deal with romance as he's trying to save people every single day?
It's one of the most alien things about the 10th Doctor is how he handles that. Especially in the Family of
So
Love
if I was
two-parter.
if I was to sum up what he's been saying, it very much seems like he doesn't like main character romance when it involves someone of greater being or of a higher, like, if you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
That's what that's what, if I'm trying to be as, like, I'm trying to steel man him here, that's what I feel like he's saying. Which even then I don't think is a problem at all. It's not inherently bad in any way.
Yeah, like would he say that Thor would be a better film if Jane Foster's wasn't a romantic interest? Is that what he would say?
Honestly, he probably would. By what he's
Yeah.
saying, he probably would say that because he's a god. He is,
when like some of what actually like defines his character in that film is actually based on that. Like you think that scene where he draws like the stars to her, explains where he comes from and who he is, that gives you actual insight into who he is as a person by him telling her about his home and his family and where he's from, exposes Jane to someone completely different to anything she understands, you know. So I don't see how that subtracts from the film in concept. I think that would, if that was his
many people issue with that is the fact there isn't enough of it.
Yeah, I think it would be very strange if that was his take.
Well, before We Better with Jane Foster, it'd be a very different film. But I think everyone, it's the common thing that the problem with the first two Thor films that a lot of people have is the fact that the relationship is very undercooked.
Yeah, it's almost like they want it to be better, you know. Also, think about like you know that scene in the very middle of that film where he tries to lift the Mjolnir and isn't able to, and it's like a huge turning point for his character.
That's one of the best scenes in the film.
Like what would happen after that scene if Jane Foster wasn't in the film? It would be so weird. It informs decisions for him.
It's one of the best scenes in the film.
One of the things that defines Captain America's character in the MCU is the fact that he lost Peggy Carter in the past.
Yeah.
Or, you know,
he made sure to put it in the water.
My favorite scene in the first Avenger is the last scene when he has to leave her.
And mm-hmm.
So that is intrinsically tied to romance.
Yeah.
So
Though with that, would he argue that he was an ordinary person at first?
I guess so.
Maybe, but even then, I doubt he would say the first Avengers is good because I think the majority would say it's an average film.
Sure.
Even though I think it's decent.
I don't really care much for it outside of that one element.
But that element does a lot for the characters.
Yeah. I love the last scene. Everything that happens after Red Skull's gone in that film, that last scene is one of the best moments in the MCU. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's one of the last few that isn't like completely butchered with future context. Actually, no, that's not true.
Well, Loki butchers everything. So
yep, it does.
Kang,
It does.
Kang,
It does
Kang,
indeed.
ladies and gentlemen. Kang butchers every moment.
Apparently, the first episode of Moon Knight is actually pretty good.
Interesting.
I think Jeb said it was good. I think MauLer said it was good. So, or at least neat. So
Hawkeye,
there's some hope.
Hawkeye has Haley Steinfeld in it, so Tim would be happy.
I don't think Tint hasn't seen it though.
No, probably just sees the gifs that come.
Probably, yeah. But even
Anyway,
then, Hawkeye seemed to ruin the good Daredevil villain, which makes me sad.
You know, I think Tin's obsession with Haley Steinfeld is a melodrama, and it doesn't belong in.
It doesn't belong in Tin's character.
Yeah, it subtracts from Ecom's appeal.
Yes, you heard it here first. Tin is an unwritten female character.
Anyway.
High concept science fiction ideas. I want to see elements of the real world and the warnings about.
I just want to point out the most high concept Doctor Who story to ever exist is The Natural History of Fear. It's a Big Finish audio that has romance in it. By the way, Wingy Media. Just want to point that out. How about Scherzo? That's also one of the most high concept Doctor Who stories ever, written by Robert Sherman. Romance is one of the biggest parts of it. It is an episode that explores the relationship between the Eighth Doctor and Charlie Pollard. Romance is the driving force behind that drama, and it is one of the most high concept episodes of Doctor Who. So, you're fucking wrong.
Technologies or maybe an allegory for things that are going on in the real world. The political issues that Doctor Who has seen throughout it.
Yeah, only the cool stuff, Callum? Only the cool stuff. Not the cringe stuff like romance. Can't have that.
No.
Can't have those...
Aliens can't fall in love.
Can't have those yucky feelings that only girls feel. That's the energy I'm getting from this.
Tim's obsession with Haley has no place in my Doctor Who. Hey, Tim can like what she likes.
Don't blame her.
She's a good-looking woman.
Yes. Fuck, what was I gonna say? Hate that. Hate when I forget what I was gonna say. Anyway.
You throw romance in there, and it almost just... It's kind of like throwing chocolate into a pasta dish, like...
What?
Yeah, pasta and, the tomato sauce.
No.
And that's great. Chocolate by itself.
You can't use food analogies for this kind of stuff. Just can't.
He's using an analogy without explaining what the actual disconnect is.
What does it mean? What does it mean? Oh, God.
It's great. You together. It just doesn't work for us, by the way. And I'm sure there's someone out there who does love their pasta with chocolate. And if you are that person, then cool. But the majority of us just, no, we don't need that shit.
I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that love this sci-fi with a bit of romance in there when it's well done.
I don't think he scripted this. I'm gonna be honest. I don't think he scripted this.
To be fair, I don't script that many of my videos because I'm very
No, but these kind of videos are what need to be scripted.
I'm a
because what we do is
rapper.
very much what we do is very much off the initial reactions we have to things.
Sure. I write
But
notes so I
when they're doing
remember what to
yeah,
talk about.
yeah.
But
But when it comes to this,
I'm
like
very.
I've had to write scripts and videos, and it's very important that you do.
I mean, I guess
Yeah.
apart from the fact that I had to cut out a lot of ums and ahs and pauses, I think I'm
Yeah.
pretty. I'd say not to brag, but I think I'm pretty eloquent with the way I speak about things. So I think I'm just lucky in that regard.
But it's like when it comes to these kind of videos, when they're trying to make a point, when they're trying to give a like an overall point for a reason, you really have to script these out and
Probably
really think about what you're going to say.
Probably because I have a very a strong recall for information. I have a good vocabulary, and I have a good understanding of how to explain things to people without them not knowing what
Plus,
you actually
more
mean.
times than not, you're talking with other people, so there's more of a conversation being had.
Yes, there's momentum all
But
the
with
time.
these videos, I would highly suggest that people script their videos. Trust me, I've done off the cuff
Also-
videos on my by
also,
myself. It's
I will
not
say,
fun.
a lot of the content that I review, a lot of it is stuff I've watched or listened to many, many, many,
Mhm.
many times. Like, when we did those Pink Floyd reviews, like those are songs I've listened to for hundreds and hundreds of times over the years, and I've like dug out
Yeah.
every little detail of them. So it's like how I'm not gonna forget what to say because I know those songs like almost off like the back of my hand. Yeah.
If there's romance involved with companions or other characters, fine. I just don't want another love story between the Doctor and the companion. Like I say, I just think it's totally unnecessary. It isn't needed. It's adding extra shit that doesn't need to be there.
So you use the analogy of adding chocolate to pasta. Why is it like that with the Doctor and not others? Is it because they're supernatural? Is that why?
Yes.
I mean, to be honest, outside of regeneration, I don't think the Doctor's that supernatural. Maybe a bit of aging, maybe a bit of like very, very high intellect and experience, but
High intellect, long lifespan, and like elements of immortality in a sense, but not really.
I think a lot of what makes them appealing is how down to earth they are.
Yeah. Despite all the alienness of them, they're still a being. They're still a being with thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
It's a very much a.
I think the part of what makes the Ninth Doctor so appealing to a lot of people is that on the surface he appears like a working class British gentleman from the north, but then once you dig away at his character, like you peel back the layers, you see an alien. But you really have to dig. But I think a lot of the time the Doctor's quite down to earth. And not as supernatural as a lot of these other characters that he's describing. Like, like DC heroes. DC heroes are very supernatural and not like the Doctor.
Oh, very, very, very much. So would you say that Superman and Lois can't be a thing?
Who the fuck was...
Biological Beale when the pilot shouldn't be a thing? Well, Beale, to be fair, was a human at first. So I don't know if he would count that. He'd just probably call that natural progression, I guess. I don't know.
No idea.
I don't know. No clue.
You'd have to ask him.
I'm trying to be as good faith as possible here, guys.
I don't think we use that on Series 10 memory.
No.
In fact, I don't think he really liked anything of New Who after Series 6.
No. I guess.
Yeah.
And I would rather focus on, the monsters, the characterization of these people as individuals, not...
Well, that's part of the characterization, you
nitwit?
That's
you
part
nitwit?
That is part of the characterization. That's how they explore it in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, there could be bad characterization, but with this example, It just
So-
depends on how it's
so-
done, but
so
more
Mitch-
times than not, it's decent characterization.
Oh, do you think honestly, do you think it's just like when we say we want quality, I'm finding over time it's not as common as I thought it was.
No, I don't think this fandom, online fandom, I would say, very much want preferences over
Yeah,
quality.
I think when it comes to something else that's a bit more centralized, you think of something like Game of Thrones, outside of adaptation shit, but like in general, it's in this like box of this is what Game of Thrones is and always will be. Like every episode is part of the same story, and so
Mhm.
they don't have preferences because it's all the same shit. And
It's
so
what it is.
and so everyone's just like, I want it to be good, and when it's not good, I don't like it, and that's probably
I want
why
it to be
it's
good at what it's doing. Yeah.
and that's probably why a lot of people agree on a lot of what is good and what isn't. There are exceptions, but a lot of it is agreed on. Like everyone's like, well, season 8's shit, season 1's great. That seems to be the consensus, and it's because they care about quality. Whereas,
Especially now, it's been like 2 years after that. It's very much that's accepted now.
yeah, whereas with Doctor Who, for some reason, it's not about that. It's about this weird wheel of wishful thinking and arbitrary preferences, and these just things of like, I want the show to be like
Because
this.
a lot of people
Yeah.
want it to just be escapism.
Yeah, but they also want it to be like as if it's like you're selecting flavors of ice cream or something.
Yeah.
It's like the show's quality depends on its genre and tone and feel and look and what it talks about and what it is. It's like that's a bit of a weird thing to do. But I feel like the quality isn't necessarily about that. It's more about how it executes it, right? But how it takes that flavor, applies it to its core, and how well it does it. And that's why, I can watch I can watch a pure historical six-parter from William Hartnell's run, or I can watch Partners in Crime, or I can listen to The Natural History of Fear, and I still like the show, regardless of the fact that all three of them couldn't be more different. And I don't see how romance is an exception to that. I just think it's a weird, weird thing to say to not explain.
Not as two people who are in love. Russell will do that. I don't know. I've a feeling that he probably will because of how things went with Rose and the Doctor, and how still to this day that people talk about how emotional it was and how great it was that they were together. Looking back at it, I think it's fucking creepy because you've got this 19-year-old teenager.
No, that's not what happened. That's not what we talk about that arc at all. They were never together in that sense.
So he's talking about shippers, right? Talking about people that ship them together as if the point of
Yeah.
the story is that they should be. That's not the point of the story. It's actually the opposite.
Yeah.
He's using shippers as
Point is that they can't and they don't, but they still love each other.
he's not acknowledging the fact that these shippers aren't right about the show.
Yeah.
As if the show is written for them when it isn't. That they just happen to be one part of fandom that has a specific take on it. And now he's about to get into the thing that people think is creepy.
Rose and the Doctor, and how still to this day that people talk about how emotional it was and how great it was that they were together. Looking back at it, I think it's fucking creepy because you've got this 19-year-old teenager and this 900-year-old alien.
Yeah, I actually agree. I think it's more creepy when the Doctor spanks Clara and says the sky is too tight. 10 literally does anything close to that.
Because he's not perverted.
Exactly, he has a lot of respect for Rose.
Like, okay, so he has a couple of saucy moments here and there. Notices that Madame de Pompadour has grown breasts, or in The End of Time Part 1 gets talks about banging Queen Elizabeth or whatever. But he's not. I wouldn't call him a perverted character. Neither would I call the Ninth Doctor a perverted character. I don't think it's that creepy.
And here's the thing: like, I don't care in that sense because it's fine.
Yeah.
So it's very odd.
It's harder to really talk about it with an alien because they're not like us.
Exactly, it's an alien.
But there's not really laws around that because it doesn't exist in real
No,
life.
well, no, because even then though, it's like fucking. She is an adult, like she is. Let's not beat about the bush here.
Yeah, and also, you ask people in the general public, they all know that the Doctor is 900 because they are told in exposition that he's 900. None of them bat an eyelid at that. They don't care. That doesn't change how they feel about their relationship
because they
at
understand
all.
that he is like he's still understandable to an extent as a person.
Majority of people that are casual fans of the show that I know have watched this, that like the characters, when they know that the Doctor is that much older, it honestly doesn't phase them. They don't even think of that as
No, it doesn't.
as an issue.
It's literally never phased me because they're both in the most untraditional traditional sense. They're adults.
But also the fact that, despite the fact that he says he's 900, he's not a 900-year-old human.
Well, with that kiss in New Earth has context to it. The issue with that is Ten's reaction to it. That's the weird part.
Well, yeah, but that's a matter of quality and execution, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But we're talking about in concept, right? So
yeah.
If the Doctor was actually like a 900-year-old man, like he is, when he's caged up in Last of the Time Lords, and takes the appearance of his actual age. Okay, that would be a bit creepy, possibly, but
visually
speaking, Surf Civil, but like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's that weird because regeneration renews you to a younger age again. Like you get, despite the fact that you remember your past life, get renewed as a younger person or an older person. The case of 12th Doctor. But it's like you get put into another point of your growth, because it's not like the Doctor's got a 900-year-old biological body. It's someone who's lived for 900 years who is reverted back being, biologically whatever he is. So yeah, I just think it's so bizarre that they just again, they're just like Mr. TARDIS, they're bad faithing mathematics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I don't agree. I think I'd be really interested to hear Jay's take on this, because I know they have much more developed opinions on this sort of thing, at least more than Wingy Meaty does. I've never seen it as creepy because of the connotation. And again, you got to remember that it's not just about age; it's also about intention. It's also about why they're together. Like the reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Why
Prime makes a great point in chat. Like, if romance is creepy, just him being friends with companions is just a bit bizarre by that logic.
Yeah. And I think it's
the same sort of aspect.
They're just putting 2 and 2 together and getting 10 of, like, they're only thinking of it in a sexual sense.
Mm-hmm.
In a, like, just in the most bad faith straw man of this whole thing of a 900-year-old man is penetrating a woman who's just older than being a teenager. That's how they're seeing it. But that's not really what this is, right? That's not really what this is. It's just that they see it that way, and that's just weird to me. It's weird that that's how they view it.
That's a bit weird to me, but, you know, takes all to make a world, I guess. In terms of other things...
Fuck's sake. Not even...
no, do we just...
Not... Dude, 8 minutes. No elaboration whatsoever. You made one reference to Arrow.
Really.
You made one reference to Arrow that made his point worse, not better.
Mm-hmm.
I really have too many worries for Russell because but those two things for me, they really stood out as like, yeah, I don't want that again. I don't want the same as before. And
Wait, was it two things? What was the other thing?
I forget what the first thing was.
Someone in chat remind us what the first thing was.
What
I
was the
also
first
don't
thing
want
he
that
said,
fucking romantic aspect. But other than that, I have got quite a few hopes for Russell T Davies, which I will talk about in the next episode of this mini series, I guess, that I'm doing. In the comments below, though, guys, let me know what you think. Do you agree
Please
with me?
script
Do
your
you
videos,
worry
guys,
that
please.
maybe some of these things he shouldn't do, or do you have no worries whatsoever? Do you have different worries? Whatever it is, let me know down below.
The only thing I'm worried about is BBC interference. That's it.
Yes.
Because they like to fuck with things a lot, and not just BBC, but other studios do. Well, they like to really mess around with the creative, and I hate that because I'm an artistic person first, more than business.
Oh, the voice actress for Miss Potato Head has just passed. That's
Oh,
a shame. That's sad. 93 years old.
okay. That's a good age.
Yeah, that's a shame.
If you
He just
enjoyed
said
this
that
video, then make
after
sure you
repeating what he did, which is just the same point as romance anyway. Yeah, it was kind of just mixed into the same point.
leave a like on it, subscribe for more. Social media and
I won't
Patreon
be.
links will be in the description, as always. So if you would follow me on any of those things, I'd absolutely love you forever. But until next time, guys, you take care of yourselves.
I mean, this wasn't like one of the worst videos we've done. It was just very lame.
It was a very lame video. There wasn't much said.
Yeah, this was very middling.
A very much nothing video, I would say.
Yeah. I'm kind of disappointed, actually. I was expecting some, like stinking
This
takes.
felt very unstructured as a video.
Yeah. I
It
had a lot more...
It very much he just turned the camera on and just
I had a lot more...
talking.
I had a lot more, like, fun breaking down Marcus's one and Council of Geeks' one, because they actually had, like...
They tried to elaborate.
I had vitriolic responses to theirs, and that was a lot more enjoyable to talk about.
Most of their arguments were really poor.
Yeah. Whereas Wingy didn't really make an argument. He just said, "This is what I
never really
don't
made an
want."
argument ever.
Yeah. He's like, "This is not the direction I want." It's like, why? And he's like, "Well, it's because I don't want it."
I would still say, as a video, this was pretty poor. Like I said, it lacks a lot of structure. It lacks a lot of like elaboration on points he's trying to make. So it very much comes across as a nothing video. He's kind of just talking.
Yeah.
He's not really, like we keep saying, he didn't elaborate on any of his points.
Yeah, I didn't really learn anything that I haven't heard before. That's the most disappointing.
It's very much the same. Very much the same thing.
Just the same old shit, really, that I hear all the time, and I'm just like, just roll my eyes when I read it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, get a better. Either don't do the green screen, or at least stretch your background so it fits the whole.
Oh, that's the worst thing about this video is the fucking setup. I hate the setup of it.
Yeah, but the production is pretty poor.
Oh my god, I hate it. I would be probably more favorable towards it purely based on the stylistic choices. If he used it as his old background. Weirdly, this might be one of our better videos we've covered on EDAR, which is really saying something. Because we've had a lot of
Maybe,
really...
but even then, I'd be hesitant to say that.
Yeah. Depends on... I guess it depends, really. I don't know. So
What
it's
the fuck?
better...
Abyss worked on the fucking Happy Corbin Drew McIntyre match. What the fuck?
No, I did. Oh, yeah, that's weird.
That's weird.
Would you say
very
that his takes here were better or worse than his ones on Mission to the Unknown? I thought his ones on Mission to the Unknown were really bizarre. When he was saying things like how...
Yeah, that was more probably because he probably elaborated a bit more there.
Yeah, he was like, why is there a prequel to a 12-parter? It's like... just silly question.
It's a passion project. God damn it. Yeah, this was just very much a... He said words, he made it very clear what his preferences were, but he never elaborated on why.
Yeah.
Why that inherently makes the show worse or takes away or isn't needed or unnecessary.
I mean, I know a lot of people are like, oh, videos need to be shorter, blah, blah, blah. This needed to be longer than 8 minutes. 100%.
This needed to be scripted. This really did.
Even to elaborate on just this one point, it needed to be longer than 8 minutes. Unless you were able to fucking nail down everything with very concise words, which again you would need to script it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say none of the points he tried to make weren't good, but he just never elaborated further.
Yeah.
Because he's saying inherently it doesn't work when that's just not true. So I wouldn't even say that there weren't bad takes. I would say there were, but it was more just he thinks inherently that these things don't work for Doctor Who.
But doesn't explain why.
But he doesn't explain why.
And it's probably just because he doesn't want them to be in it. That's it, really.
Yeah, he's just sort of talking.
It's his own. What was that headline they used when Trump was making up bullshit about the election having like false votes or something? It's like they're like, oh, it's only self-interest. Yeah, it's not to do with democracy, it's just self-interest. I know that's an extreme example, but that's kind of the motivation I'm getting from this, is that it seems like it's based on self-interest as opposed to... Obviously, this is a TV show, so it's a bit of a different context. But that's kind of what I'm getting from this, is it seems like it's only driven by self-interest. It's not really out of the interest of the show's actual quality. And on top of that, it's not what he says the show is doing and has done is not reflective of what it actually did. It's not even true. And the references he used were really poor too. The fact that he used the one from Arrow just made his points worse. And also the worst references he uses with the shippers. I hated that. And even he himself said they were a vocal minority.
He did.
Like using the shippers is not a justification against having romance in your storytelling. Because if you just stay off social media, you won't see shippers, will you? So it's not.
Mm-hmm.
It's got nothing to do with the show. It's just to do with people that watch the show.
You can literally just critique the show if it does that in of itself.
Yeah, I mean, look, you could make... If I was to actually use the points he made here, make an actual argument, I would say I'm worried that RTD2 could reintroduce another wave of fans that I really don't like. That's what he could say.
Yeah.
But again, I would also counter that and say, well, I think the Chibnall era and the Moffat era have also encouraged a lot of toxicity within a fandom, and arguably much worse than what it was.
Well, look at what we've had to deal with over the last year alone.
I think some of the fandom is atrocious at the moment, regardless of the
I
RTD2
really agree.
factor. So, yeah. bad arguments, bad video. Good luck next time. I mean, maybe uh, out of a service to him, maybe at some point we could cover the opposite that he does when he, talks about the opposite, where he's like, what are his positives going for RTD2? Like, what is he looking forward to? We could do that, but it just might not be as contentious
Maybe,
because
but
we might just nod our heads.
yeah, I probably would say it would just literally be us being like, yeah, bro, that'd be good. Yeah, that'd probably be good. I don't think there would be much out of that.
Yeah, it's difficult to do those ones.
I think like it can't be worse than this video, that's for sure.
Yeah, probably not. But also, I feel like maybe his praise is quite shallow as well.
I mean, probably, but we'd probably be like, sure, but we would like that to be explored, and there'd be stuff that we would cite. It could be explored in this way or that way. Yeah,
going into this video, I wasn't expecting him to talk about this for the whole thing. I was expecting
yeah.
him to
I was expecting like 5 different points at least.
I was expecting him to talk about Murray Gold, but he never mentioned them, not once.
A nice mediocre EDAR before a super introduced episode 20 with the worst takes we've ever heard.
Oh, dude.
I mean,
okay,
yeah,
so,
we're gonna have to go for a big one.
So we'll tell them what we're gonna do for EDAR 20. We are going to do Harbo's new video defending the Chibnall era. So
How long is that video?
I don't know.
Let's see then. Oh, it's 11 minutes.
You're gonna
I thought it'd be like 20.
defend the entire Chibnall era minus the last 2 episodes in 10 minutes.
How
Good
can?
luck.
I mean, here's the thing. This was a 9-minute video. We made 3 hours out of it. So
9-minute video.
honestly, we probably can cover 2 videos.
No, but hold on. This is a 9-minute video only talking about something that hasn't come out yet, about one thing.
That's true.
Just romance.
That's true.
Harbo is going to try and defend the entire Chibnall era in 10 minutes. I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that.
I couldn't even defend like an okay episode in that 10 minutes from the Chibnall era.
I would have to try really hard to even defend the Russell era in 10 minutes and cover everything. That would be really hard.
Yeah. That'd be very, very, very difficult to do.
Oh boy. The length of a Goldberg.
That's stretching it a bit.
Maybe 2 Goldberg.
1.5. He made a 20. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. He made a 24-minute long video on "Let's Kill Hitler" being bad, but then spends 12 minutes on the Chibnall, who is a masterpiece, and here's why.
Well, he doesn't say masterpiece, but he's defending the Despised.
Well, the title says Chibnall's Doctor Who is a masterpiece.
I think that's clickbait. I think he's doing that because his view count's been plummeting ever since he stopped ever since he stopped reviewing the RTD era. It's been plummeting. There's not as much interest for it, and also because I think he may have also lost quite a few viewers when he did Series 5 because he was quite negative on a lot of it, and Series 5 is quite popular. So maybe that's why as well. Because he did shit on it quite a bit, and that may have turned off. I think it's gotten a bit down.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at some of these thumbnails for the Series 5 one. Yeah, it's not Not great.
So yeah, maybe he's resorting to clickbait titles to get people to actually watch.
Yeah, why Let's Kill Hitler sucks.
I mean, it does.
It does.
Did
the Doctor go too far in A Good Man Goes to War? That's strange.
I mean, he doesn't really do much in that episode, to be fair.
What the fuck? His title for the Series 6 opener is the best series opener. The fucking 11th hour was literally a season ago.
Yeah, for some reason, Harbo really likes Series 6. I don't know why.
Oh, wait, hold on. It was on April Fool's Day, so it might be an April Fool's video. Though that would be funny to cover. That would be actually funny to cover, though, for 20 as a joke.
Now, I know that Harbo likes Series 6 much more than Sid.
Which is not a great take.
Interesting. I think
I
there's
mean, Series 5 does have some humbling, to be fair. It
and-
literally has 3 bad episodes, and that's it.
I mean, Series 6 has more like peaks that I would enjoy watching than 5, but that doesn't make it better as a series because it's almost like the other part of that is dire, and the actual
Also, the
series
arc is
arc,
terrible.
the actual thing that threads through it is atrocious. So yeah, fuck it. Anyway, I am canceling this one.
Yeah. Little mini one. For our standards, this is a short one.
It's been a very long day.
Yes.
The next time on this channel, it'll either be the next Pink Floyd review or it'll be EDAR. Either way, I'm looking forward to either.
Well, maybe hopefully we'll have some people on for 20.
Maybe we will. Maybe we. I'd like to get Will Maddox on EDAR at some point.
That'd be fun.
The problem with him is like he hates talking about New Who, so maybe not for the next one. Like just so tired of talking about it because of the people that surround him.
We can talk about the good stuff, though.
And all the drama that's come from just New Who discourse, like people that have like disowned him and stopped being a friend and whatnot, purely because he's just honest about it. It really sucks. But you know what? That fucking cesspool of Twitter produced some pretty nasty bollocks. So I'm not surprised.
Amen to that.
Anyway, we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye. Romance is shit.